for Monday, November 2nd, 2015. Do I have a mover for the consent items? Mayor Verbanovich? Sorry. We have Councillor Gazzola. Go. Sorry, he kicked in before you did.
I have a question.
You have a question? Okay. So that requires a motion. Yeah. Which item do you have a question on?
Pardon?
Which item do you
have a
consent
question on item 1.
Item 1? Okay. Okay, then we'll vote on item number 2. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So we'll go to consent item number 1. We're going to vote to pull that out. All those in favor? Can I see the hands, please? Okay, that's carried. And okay, that's for item number 1 and 3. Sorry, that will make it simple. Go ahead, Councillor Gazzola.
No, from reading item number 1, it looks like this is where we have rules that are posted, but they're not covered by bylaw. Is that correct? So we're adjusting the bylaw to fit with the rules that are posted, right?
Mr. Reedman?
Through the chair, yes, the signs have been posted for a number of years, but the bylaw doesn't accurately reflect the time limit.
Yeah, my real question is, are there other areas like that in the city?
Through the chair, I'm not familiar with any other areas, but we can look into them.
I just thought while we're correcting this, we might as well correct all the issues like that in the city.
Okay. Any further questions on item number 1? Okay. So we'll go to Councillor Galloway-Seal. Okay. All right. I'll put the 2 together. Just separately? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So item number 3. Mayor Verbanovic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move the recommendation, but I'll move it with one change, and that's that Council endorse the awards program, but that we keep the timing of the awards to be every 2 years, as has previously been the case. We did a review a number of years ago of the program. We went from 1 year to 2 years at that time. And I know even at that time there was some concern around doing that. I think going once every 4 years, quite frankly, we have a lot more to celebrate in this community in terms of some of the development and so on that's going on, and we should be recognizing that. If we don't have people in a particular category, then we don't need to award that in a given year. But I think we should be doing this every 2 years as we have up until now. So that would be my motion.
Okay. Is yours a question, Councillor Davey? I want to take some questions before we proceed with your amendment. Councillor Yaneski?
Yeah, I too want to echo the Mayor's comments on this. I was disappointed to read the report to see that we're going back to 4 years. Initially it was 1 going to 2, and now we're going to go back to 4. And I strongly feel that we do have a number of projects here that would qualify quite frequently, because you see the list that is presented with us on a semi-annual basis, or biannual basis, I should say, on the projects under different categories. And now we're expanding it even more, and I think that's a wonderful opportunity. So I will definitely support to have 2 years, because we do have a great opportunity, and 4 years is just too long of a time period to wait. And we've got great projects that are done by various builders and community leaders in our city.
Councillor Fernandez?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask staff, what kind of staff time are we talking about to process the awards, to take the resources that we're talking about to execute the awards, to get the event going? What kind of staff time are we looking at?
Janine?
Through the chair, I don't know exactly how to quantify it, but it is over the course of a year. It takes a tremendous amount of time in terms of the front administration, in terms of putting out the call for nominations, regular meetings, setting up the judging days, and then getting all the preparations ready for the awards ceremony. For example, putting together the film, arranging the caterer, all those types of items as well.
So in the report, you talk about that there are times when projects take 2 or more years to complete. Is that one of the criteria that you used for moving it from a 2-year award program to a 3-year award program?
Through the chair. So in terms of that's one of the reasons for, because we have a lot more larger, more extensive projects that are happening in the city right now, that they do take a long time to construct. But it's also just to make sure that there's a good, solid pool of candidate projects, and we can always be awarding excellent projects.
So have we struggled with fulfilling enough nominations in each of the categories? And now that you've added 3 more categories, do you feel that there may be some challenges around having enough nominations for each of those areas? If we stay within the 2-year award time? Yeah,
within the 2-year award time, we're not going to award in every category every 2 years.
Do you see that it would be a better event, I guess, if you want, or a better recognition event if you had the opportunity to go every 3 years so that you can get the full slate of nominees?
So through the chair, the award program as recommended in this report is every 4 years on the 3rd year of a council cycle. So are you asking whether or not, like, for another option in terms of going every 2 years?
I would support the option that staff has presented. So I just wanted to know if you feel that the option you're presenting, I mean, I looked in your report and you had a lot of rationale for changing that. So I just want to sort of confirm with you that that was one of the reasons why you felt that you would actually have a better slate of nominations if you waited that extra year.
That's correct, that we would have just a stronger pool of candidates and be able to award in more of the categories if we have it every 4 years.
Okay, thank you. And if the motion does fail, then I'm going to put forward to accept the staff's recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Marsh?
Just a couple questions. I'm just wondering if for number 4, Urban Elements Award, if you had considered calling it the Placemaking Award?
Through the chair, the Urban Elements Award has been called the Urban Elements Award since the last round, and so I hadn't considered another change in category name. Okay. Should council choose to look at that, that would be fine with me as well.
Okay. Well, I would just make a friendly amendment that we call the Urban Elements Award the Placemaking Award. At the appropriate time. And then also, I am wondering if staff has considered in the past getting sponsorships to help alleviate the costs of, if we were to do it every 2 years, if sponsorships would help with that.
Janine?
Through the chair, I don't think that the issue is so much the financial aspect of things. We could potentially look at sponsorships. We might need support from another division, maybe communications, if they've got some expertise in how to seek sponsorships. But we do have some capital funding available on a regular basis for the awards program.
Mm-hmm. Mr. May?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I would just point out that we do have some other awards where we do have sponsors, and it actually is a significant amount of time required from staff to get those sponsorships. And for the level we're talking here, I don't think the amount of money we would collect would be worth the amount of staff time to go out and get those sponsorships.
Okay, all right. Thank you. When we were at the Festival of Neighborhoods award ceremony, which happens on an annual basis, I did notice that we do have several sponsorships for that, and also a collaboration with other groups. And so I thought that if we do go with every 2 years, that might be an option that saves staff time, but certainly we wouldn't want to add to the burden of staff's time. So thank you.
Mayor Verbanovich?
Yeah, I was just going to add, as prior to being mayor, as you know, I was chair of the committee that oversaw this, and I know that we did have, certainly in my time, a number of applications, maybe not for every category in this, and it, quite frankly, often the challenge was trying to narrow down to find appropriate winners when you wanted to actually acknowledge more than we could. And so that's part of the rationale for leaving it at 2 years instead of 4, moving it to 4, to be, in addition to the comments I made earlier.
Mr. May?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I've heard this referenced several times, and so I think what would be helpful is if Mayor Verbanovic is going to move the amendment, he's suggesting that it is explicit that if we go to every 2 years, I'd like to have wording approved by council that says we may not award all of the awards in every year. Otherwise, I can see what will happen in 2 years. I'll get some angry email from council, and so if you could just add that to your motion, I think that would be helpful.
Mr. Wilmer?
And just to add to that, because I've also had some involvement in this program over a number of years, the optics are very different. If you apply for something and finish second to an outstanding project, there's no shame in that. But if you apply for something and we decide not to award it at all, it actually is a bit of a slap in the face to the applicant. So I'd ask council to bear that in mind.
Okay. We don't have any further questions.
My motion includes wording to the effect that Mr. May asked for, and Councillor Marsh, if you want to do it as an amendment, that's fine, or I can make it friendly and include the change. Okay, that's fine. So we'll include that change as well.
Okay, so we'll wrap it all in one then. Okay. Okay, we'll vote on the name change separately. That's fine. Okay, so we're going to vote separately on the name change first, and it's been recorded vote. Placemaking versus I didn't urban elements. Okay. What's that? Sorry.
I beg your pardon. Okay, so just to clarify, so what we're voting on is voting yes if you want to call it placemaking instead of urban elements, and vote no if you want to keep it the way it currently is, called the Urban Elements Award.
Okay, is that clear? Okay. So we are ready to vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And now to Mayor Verbanovich motion. Is that a recorded vote or is that? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So now we're going to go into delegations, dealing with the first item, item number 4. That's dealing with the development incentives for affordable housing. We do have a representative from the region who's going to be, along with staff, with a total time around 15 minutes presenting, Mr. Jeffrey Schumacher. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee, to give me an opportunity to provide you with a high-level overview in terms of what the region's role and incentives are regarding affordable housing, as well as some of the initiatives we are looking at to enhance our affordable housing toolbox. So first off, I just want to provide you with a definition of affordable housing. We have a number of different policy initiatives and programs that use different formulas or thresholds to define numerically what affordable housing is, but in essence, it is a relative term. And basically, it's accepted that when a household pays more than 30% of their gross household income on housing costs, over the 30%, it is unaffordable. Obviously, the lower the income, the more issues you have with affordability. So somebody earning $20,000 a year can afford about $500 a month for housing. And you can't even rent the average bachelor apartment here in the region at that amount. Whereas a household earning about $80,000 a year, they have about $2,000 a month to spend on housing costs. So obviously they have a lot more options. So a lot of our focus and attention of our policies and programs is at the lower income range. So just some of the trends and data that we look at when we try and define the affordable housing need in our community. According to the 2011 National Household Survey, 40% of renting households in the region were paying over 30% of their income on housing costs. The City of Kitchener was about 39%. Vacancy rates, rental vacancy rates, generally 3% is considered a healthy rental market. In 2014, the vacancy rate in the region was 2.3%. Kitchener was at 2.2%. Today, CMHC released the 2015 rental market reports, and vacancy rates dropped in the region down to 2.1% now. In terms of our waiting lists, we have typically, for the last decade, had about 3,000 households on our community housing waiting list, with about half of those households in the City of Kitchener. Wait times can be up to 8 years for a single non-senior or a non-senior couple. Those are the greatest wait times here in the region. Emergency bed nights in 2014, over 74,000 bed nights in the shelter system. And that shelter system served over 3,200 unique individuals over the course of the year. And then regarding the need for supportive housing, we have over 1,400 households waiting for supports to maintain their housing. So in terms of the region's role, the region assumed a leadership role in around 2000, 2001 in the absence of any federal provincial capital funding programs. The region started its affordable housing strategy and started funding new rental housing. That's also the time when the province transferred the service manager role for housing and homelessness to the region. So as part of being the service manager for housing, the region oversees 50 co-op and nonprofit housing providers with approximately 5,000 units. The region is also a landlord with Waterloo Region Housing, owning and administering another 2,700 units. We maintain the coordinated community housing waiting list, as well as we develop and deliver affordable housing programs that are funded through federal provincial funding. In terms of our tools that we use to help address affordable housing needs, three of the policy documents that we have are the Regional Official Plan, with the latest Regional Official Plan coming into effect this past summer. We had a number of new of housing-related policies included in this plan, including condo conversion policies, as well as a policy to ensure a wide range of housing types in large developments. Regarding addressing homelessness and working towards eliminating it, we have our homelessness to housing stability strategy, which was updated in 2012. Regarding housing, we have our longer-term community action plan for housing, which was approved by Council in 2014. So the homelessness to housing stability strategy and the housing action plan combine to address the provincial requirement for service managers to prepare 10-year housing and homelessness plans. So our affordable housing strategy, it was started in 2001. Up till the end of our last strategy, the end of 2013, we had helped achieve over 2,000 units in the community. And not only are we creating affordable housing units, we are seeing a number of what we call community returns on investment. So if you look at the 1,400 rental units, for every dollar that the region invested, we've leveraged $12 from other sources. We've created more than 3,800 person years of employment and saw the capital investment of about $176 million. So we have a new affordable housing strategy that was approved last year and goes to 2019. And the goal is to create or help address the housing needs of at least 700 households. Now that may not seem like an ambitious target, but given the recent federal provincial funding we received from 2014 to 2019, it's about $25 million. If all that was invested in new rental construction, affordable rental construction, we'd only be looking at about 200 units. So some of the tools we use to help implement our affordable housing strategy to help create rental housing, we have what's called our municipal housing facility bylaw, which allows the region the ability to provide grants or forgivable loans to private sector developers. We have a fund to help pay for the regional development charges for projects approved under our strategy. As well, the region has invested over $12 million in capital grants. As a provincial requirement, we had to create an optional property tax class that taxes all new rental development at the same rate as single-family homes. We have a consolidated housing incentive and funding resource guide that provides information on a number of different funding sources, as well as we've been able, in a couple instances, use surplus lands to help create affordable housing. Some of the other programs that we have in place is our affordable home ownership program. Since it started in about 2008, we've helped 350 families move out of rental housing and become first-time homeowners, with over 200 of those in the city of Kitchener. Our Ontario Renovates program does necessary repairs as well as accessibility modifications for low-income homeowners. As well as we started a housing assistance with support program, and it's a portable rent subsidy targeted at lower-income households, and in particular, part of the region strategy to address the closing of the out of the colds. In terms of some of the future incentives that we're looking at, one, as a requirement of the provincial policy statement, the region needs to create and help implement or achieve affordable housing targets. We've just completed drafting those targets, and we will be working with their municipalities to finalize those targets and working on a strategy to implement them. The Ontario Renovates program I mentioned, we're looking at expanding that to allow the funds to be used to help create affordable secondary suites for rental housing. We're looking at a consolidated approach to addressing or using land banking and surplus lands, including federal lands, as well as surplus school sites. And we're also looking at creating some new incentives to help create additional affordable housing, in particular in the range of 80 to 110% of average market rent. And in particular, looking at creating that sort of near market rent housing along the ION corridor. Finally, we're looking at using revitalization existing community housing sites or social housing sites, and to increase the number of affordable units we have on those sites. And there's a photo, an example of one of the Kitchener housing properties on David Street, where 16 units were replaced with an 18-unit building, as well as phase 2 with an additional 21 units, thereby increasing the number of affordable housing units on that site. So these are some of the initiatives we are looking at pursuing, and hope to work with City of Kitchener staff as we develop these additional tools. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Schumacher, I'm going to take staff's presentation, and then I will have questions to to the members afterwards. We have Ms. Nelson up.
All right, so we're here to discuss the staff report and discussion paper on development incentives for affordable housing. To begin, affordable housing is a very broad topic, and so the primary purpose of this study was to review current and potential programs and incentives for the City of Kitchener for affordable rental housing. Now, the report before you recommends continuing the support for Region of Waterloo housing programs and upcoming initiatives, and also sort of seeks discussion and direction on initiatives to be considered further, such as feasibility analysis of a future program. So to talk a little bit about the process, the development incentives for affordable housing was added to the 2015 corporate business plan as a corporate priority. This led to some background research and a discussion paper between July and September of this year. And as part of that, there was consultation with the Region of Waterloo's housing services. This included some highlights and statistics from existing and future regional programs, and detailed information is contained within their staff report for that. Also, research from 9 different lower tier and single tier municipalities was conducted as part of this study, lower tier being similar to cities such as Kitchener, and single tier actually having the service manager for housing role, which is similar to the region's role in our case. This all led to the identification of 7 different potential financial incentives and their potential implications. It's important to note that the City of Kitchener already has a policy framework in place to support affordable housing, and there are a number of different official plan policies that were contained in the new official plan that was passed by both City and Regional Council. And so this just highlights a couple of the policies that were contained in there. So one of the main questions that staff have for this committee to consider, first off, is should a future program target affordable rental housing from the housing continuum? And this is sort of as opposed to emergency shelters or supportive housing. And if so, the follow-up question would be, should any of the following development incentives be considered for implementation further? And so here is this list of 7 different incentives that we have looked at. And one of the mechanisms to implement these initiatives would be a community improvement plan. This could include one or more of the listed incentives. And in general, there are pros and cons associated with each of them. Importantly, many of them would require the city to identify a funding source, which may or may not be tax-based supported. While any one of these incentives would be beneficial to an affordable housing provider, some of them may be more impactful from a developer's perspective regarding the feasibility of building a new development. For example, development charges or tax increment grant programs, these are the types of fees that happen to play a significant role in the cost of a development, and so reductions to these may have a bigger impact. And for these two, I'm referring to numbers 3 and 6 up on the screen. There may be some additional advantages for these 2 incentives if they're done in conjunction with the Region of Waterloo. And that's being that you kind of get more of a bang for your buck with a joint program. There are also some challenges with incentives. For example, reduced parkland dedication could lead to more intensification and higher density development, which actually increases the need for open spaces and outdoor amenity areas. Reductions to parking requirements are already available in the parts areas, and this is to ensure where developments have access to rapid transit or alternative transportation being available. Staff have already looked at density bonusing in the parts areas, and council should be aware that any of these will need some further analysis from other city departments such as parks, finance, legal, building, or others. Essentially, staff are looking to determine which of these incentives may be non-starters and which of them may have some merit. moving forward to engage in focused consultation programs with the public and with industry stakeholders. Once financial incentives are prioritized by Council, a next phase would include stakeholder consultation, this being with the public, with the development industry, with affordable housing providers, and other city business units, and result in an implementation plan or final report. And I just wanted to close with the recommendations contained in the staff report. First, that the City of Kitchener reaffirms its support to the region of Waterloo regarding housing programs, and request that the city continue to be involved or notified of upcoming initiatives and programs aimed at providing new affordable housing of all types. And second, that any further city initiative to develop a program and final report on a specific development incentive for affordable rental housing be identified in the upcoming corporate business plan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ms. Nelson. We do have some questions, so if you guys can please indicate if you want to speak to Mr. Schumacher or Ms. Nelson. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, if I can speak to Jerry first, please. My apologies, Jeffrey. Mr. Schumacher, it's clear that the region has an extensive program for affordable housing and incentivizing the development of additional units for affordable housing. One of the reasons why this was brought forward is, of course, the worry of gentrification, especially within our core, with the increasing property values, as well as for more push towards condominium development and more premium development, as opposed to having additional units that may be for rental purposes and affordable and equitable for the general public. Do you see the City of Kitchener or the lower tier municipality in entering into this realm that's already being well governed by the region of Waterloo as it is? Do you see that we may be muddling in the waters that's not in our mandate, or do you see this as perhaps a long-term cooperative approach in outlining incentives that could better bring forward more interest from our development community when the program has incentivized from the region and the city? Long-winded question, but hopefully gets to the point.
That was a long question. Go ahead, Mr.
Through you, Chair. As was indicated, given we're a two-tier municipal structure, there are certain roles that area municipalities can play and tools they can use that the region just at the regional level doesn't have the ability to use, unlike single-tier municipalities such as Toronto and Hamilton. All the role of the service manager, as well as the planning approvals through the zoning bylaw process, and that are with one municipality. So we certainly, I think we would be able to produce a lot more affordable housing if we were able to coordinate. And there's a full range of housing. Most of our housing created through our affordable housing strategy is targeted at the lower income households, where we see there's a need for a full range of housing, sort of low to moderate income households. And when we were consulting for our last housing plan in our community action plan for housing, certainly one of the issues that we heard from different circles was concern about gentrification along the transit corridor. So we are starting to look at tools to help ensure affordable housing is not only maintained but also built.
So part of my question was, I think you picked up on it a little bit, is it only rental accommodation or is it also home ownership as well?
So our program is both. We do have our affordable home ownership program, as well as our rental, our Ontario Renovates. We have a number of different programs.
Okay, all right, thank you. The next question I have is for our city staff. So that we have various different options before us. So you're looking for feedback from the committee as to which ones we want to focus on as this review goes forward and taking out some. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So would you want that list up so that we can give our recommendations, or?
And there's the list of 7.
Okay. I'm going to key back in because I'd like to spend some more time with this. So quickly, similar question what I asked Mr. Schumacher is, so is there an opportunity for us to kind of leverage more on joint incentives through the review that we've already done? Is that something we've done in the past? If so, if you can give quick examples, and if that's an avenue that we could be further leveraging. And if the time allows, what some of these incentives would allow that.
Mr. Sloan?
Through the chair, we definitely would like to cooperate and coordinate with the region on this topic. It's a very important topic in our community. There have been some past programs that eventually have worked out to be joint. As many members of council would know, the city's been offering financial incentives for a variety of things for 15 plus years. So we've been pretty early adopters in the game in terms of future development. When the region then came in for the Brownfield program, then that is really where we started to see some big wins. And that's where you get the bigger bang for the buck, exactly where Councillor Singh is going, is when you can have the two programs together. And that's what some of these offer. So when we're looking at potentially development charges or establishing a new tax increment grant-based program, number 6, property tax, those are probably the two that we see as being ones that could be a joint coordinated program. We know the region has and is looking into development charges piece. It's something that we could look at as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Etherington?
I just wanted council to know that the clerk has an additional amendment recommendation that I've prepared, which would probably answer some of Councillor Singh's questions. It relates to the priorities, suggested priorities that we apply to these 7 items. I don't know whether it's to your advantage to look at that before we continue with questions. Maybe not, but I just bring that up.
Well, I think we can look at it, and if we can put it up there and just. Okay. Well, you'll be in the 3rd in the queue. Okay, so it seems like you've almost have everything in there. Okay, so. Okay, we'll go to Councillor Davey.
Thank you. My questions are largely to do with jurisdictional boundaries. In the staff's research, I think there was 9 municipalities. How many of those municipalities were a lower tier, like Kitchener?
So there were 3 total: Cambridge, Waterloo, and Mississauga.
Okay, and of those 3, I believe City of Mississauga was as well, so I guess 4. Of those, what of any of these incentives do they have in place?
So an example for Mississauga was the reduced parking requirements, and Waterloo uses a community improvement plan as an implementation mechanism for a couple of other incentives, one of them being around building rehabilitation grants.
Okay. And Mississauga only has the parking guidelines as I see it in the report. So what, I guess my question then is, if we go ahead with some or all of these, will we be the first or forging new ground in terms of a lower tier with respect to affordable housing? That, in my opinion, a lot of which isn't in our jurisdiction. But
Mr. Sloan?
Through the chair, generally, yes, we would be on the leading edge of that.
Okay.
as a lower tier.
And in and of that, and considering the numerous financial pressures that we have, if I'm looking at these 7 options, I believe it's only option number 4 and 7, parking and density bonusing. Those are the only 2 that are actually within the planning tier and won't have a direct non-in-kind cost to the corporation. Is that correct?
Through the chair, you're generally correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Urbanovic?
Thank you, and I have several questions, and I guess the first one would build on Councillor Davies' question around cost. And I agree that reduced parking and the density bonusing wouldn't have a direct cost, but is it also correct that surplus land policies and property tax exemptions, which are similar to our brownfield program, would not have a cost associated with them, but they would simply be revenue deferral, either for a period of time or in perpetuity? Is that correct?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, that's why I said generally correct.
Okay.
So the mayor is right that through property tax deferral would be something that would perhaps have a reduced revenue for a number of years, whether it's up to 10 years is typically what we've been looking at in the past. The surplus lands, there's a certain common practice for how surplus lands are usually dealt with in terms of market values, and so if it was done a different way, there may be some future revenue perhaps entirely reduced.
Okay, so then my next question would be, if we looked at things like application fees or development charges, ultimately any of that would have to be made up through contributions from the taxpayer, i.e. we would have to make the DC fund or the building enterprise whole?
Through the chair, yes. If it was some kind of exemption, there have to be some funding source identified.
Okay. And my next question then is around parkland, because it is an issue that I know we continually struggle with, and as the city grows and as we intensify, I think one of the things that we often forget about is we may need to revisit the need for additional parkland or parkettes in certain places. And so what is this sort of this overall status of our parkland dedication, and would this be a problematic area for us to pursue, even though it's an option on here?
Through the chair, well, I can't comment on the exact status of the actual fund, but in terms of park dedication and moving forward, as the mayor's identified, it's very critical to look at providing park and public open space for people to gather in a lot of our intensification or reurbanization areas, and especially if you're looking at this type of housing, which may have some smaller units and smaller spaces and more of them in a certain area. And that can work if you have great places to go. You need some great outdoor space. And so I think generally staff would be a little bit worried if we were to look at this option, to be honest, because we're actually going to need enhanced park space in a lot of these areas.
Okay, my last question then is, obviously in terms of partnership with the provincial and federal government on some of this, because the reality is, because of our two-tier structure, I think this needs to be a collaboration. But in terms of partnership with the provincial and federal government, we know that in the federal election with the party that was elected, there were some commitments towards housing. But I guess the one piece I'm wondering about is in particular, the $1.7 billion in CMHC agreements that are coming due over the next roughly 20 years. Do we have a sense of specifically how that impacts us here in the region? And if those dollars were to if those dollars were to be kept available, or sort of for us to work with, what kind of figure would that be for us here in the region? Our share of that 1.7 billion, I guess, is my question.
Through you, Chair. I don't have that figure offhand, but it's something that I could gather. There is a question in terms of if that 1.7 stays in the affordable housing system, how it can be used. Is going to be used to continue as these groups' agreements end, to continue to help subsidize some of the rents, or is it going to be used to, another issue we have is the capital repair needs of these existing community housing. So is it, some of it are going to go to that, or are they going to free up some of it to help create additional housing? All of those questions in that level of detail, we still need to hear from the federal government.
Okay, and do I still have time for one more question, Mr. Chair?
Well,
no?
you need to...
okay, I'll cue in again then.
Okay. Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, a couple of questions for Mr. Schumacher and then a couple for Ms. Nelson. Mr. Schumacher, welcome to Kitchener. I look forward to your appearance here, so it's good to see you. On page 2 of your report, you mentioned this ongoing figure of 3,000 people on a waiting list. Can you tell me how many adults, seniors, and children that represents, roughly?
Sorry, could you please repeat?
The 3,000 names on your waiting list for affordable housing, those are just names. Do you know how many adults, seniors, and children that represents? It would be more than 3,000.
Through you, Chair, that's 3,000 households, and just under 10,000.
That's what I thought.
People.
Okay. And just generally, how do your regional stats, when you look at them, how do they compare to, I'm particularly interested in the stat 2062 that you've managed to help, I guess. How does that compare to other regions? I'm sorry, that 2062 is on page 3. Current initiatives and tools, affordable housing strategy. How do we stack up against other regions?
Because the Regional Council started with its affordable housing strategy way back in 2000, 2001, we certainly did have a running start before a lot of other service managers got involved, because the federal provincial programs really didn't start flowing funds until 2004, 2003. So we are of the larger service manager areas. We have produced more per cap or more per person than the larger service manager areas. So, London, Hamilton, Ottawa, Kingston.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
But having created those units, really, our waiting list has remained. It ebbs and flows a couple hundred every year, but since the early 2000s, we still have had about 3,000 households on the waiting list every year. So we're basically treading water.
Right. That's a good way of describing it. Just to put you on the spot, it's probably a political question. You don't have to answer it. In the past few years that you've been at the region, what have you seen in the way of federal assistance to affordable housing programs? Have you seen any?
So there has been ongoing federal and provincial funding through various programs since, like I said, about 2003. The latest edition is called the Investment in Affordable Housing for Ontarians Extension Program, and it runs from 2014 to 2019. And in the region, we received a combined $24.8 million. So it's half federal, half provincial. So they have been contributing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, my other questions are for Lauren. Do you want me to?
Okay, you have 1 minute.
1 minute? Okay, Lauren, thanks for a great report. It's very impressive. A question similar to Councillor Singh, how do we quote, and I'm quoting your report, protect existing affordable housing through the official plan and at the same time approve development that results in, as we do, that results in downtown gentrification? How do we do both?
So included in the report, we have official plan policies that invoke some limitation on condominium conversions, and so that's one of the tools that's available to protect the existing affordable housing stock. And it doesn't. And another thing that's sort of interesting to note is that conversion to condominium doesn't necessarily mean a loss of the rental housing stock. Sometimes that conversion is done for tax purposes, and so you still do have rental units at the end of condominium conversion.
Maybe just to help supplement through the chair to Councillor Etherington, I think that's why it would be really great for the city to continue to work with the region on some of their actions that they have from their strategy. Because one of them, as Mr. Schumacher illustrated, is to establish a target. We don't actually know what the target is. And that's usually a pretty good starting point, is to know what we're shooting for, and then we can work on it. And to be honest, I think we're at the point of implementation. We need to spend more time and more effort on implementation. There's a lot of strategies, a lot of plans. I think we need to find ways to make it happen.
Do something. Thank you.
Councillor Yaneski?
I have a handful of questions, one starting off with Mr. Schumacher. We have here 7 sort of recommendations of reductions of parkland or waiving fees and et cetera, et cetera. Is any of these recommendations being administered or followed through at the regional level to provide exemptions and encourage all this?
Through you, Chair. So the region, one in particular, we do have a separate fund, a housing fund that had been contributed to it through the annual operating budget process to build up this fund to help pay for development charges for projects approved under the affordable housing strategy. So any new rental building, we pay for the regional development charges if it's not within a core area or through the brownfield program.
Okay. I see where you're coming, because some of them, others may not apply or whatever. Tax exemption also, because there's a regional levy as well. That would come from the same fund? Tax exemption? Property tax exemption?
Specifically for affordable housing, we don't have a program like that.
Okay. Question to our staff. This is a discussion paper only at this point in time. So are we coming back with some more details? Because when I look at pages 426 to 430, you've got the park dedication, you've got pros and cons, benefits, and all that type of stuff, and you sort of outline where you're going, but you really don't have the details. Are we talking 2% park dedication, 1%, and all that type of stuff? Is that the details you're going to come back to later? Is that the objective? And same thing with others, other categories?
So the objective being to prioritize some of those list of 7.
Could you speak up? I have my speaker turns off when my microphone goes on, so I have trouble hearing you. So speak louder, please.
Yeah. So the objective here for today's meeting is to prioritize some of those list of 7 incentives. And then from that point, staff could continue and do a more refined study about specifically which incentives should be implemented and the process to doing that and working out those details for a later report, and also including some public consultation as part of that once we have a narrowed focus.
So with that information coming back to us, will there be a further an analysis that, okay, if we're going to be waiving fees as an example, how much loss are we going to have in terms of building permit fees or whatever on that, so we know what the loss is and who's that's lost revenue. So who's going to pay for this? Taxpayer, or where else does the money come from?
Mr. Sloan?
Through the chair, that's exactly what we would do. We just need to know generally today which one of these are really non-starters, and so that way we can focus our efforts. And is committee and council want to look at ones that do require some kind of financial funding source? If so, then yes, we'll go and look at it, work with finance, work with other divisions, and bring back some kind of business case.
I think to clarify too, Councillor Neske, I think it's up to this committee too whether or not to even focus on any of these. So it's up to us at this point.
No, I appreciate that, and I know there's benefits and drawbacks that have been outlined here, and that's sort of good. But unless you see the final number figures, it's sort of hard to make a proper decision here for me. That would be so. I would like to see all categories looked at. Give us all the details, and then we can chop and pick in a future date. That's the way I would see it.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. Thank you for this report. This is great, both your reports. I just want to ask, in your research, Ms. Nelson, did you come across other incentives and innovations that are offered in other parts of the country or in the United States that are not currently available in Ontario?
Yes, so through the research there are some other options in other parts of the country. Staff had prepared a letter that was actually a response to the province's long-term affordable housing strategy, and provided some comments about what the cities across Ontario would like to see in the future. And so a couple examples of those are sort of clear definitions for affordable housing, incentives for municipalities and for private sector developers. And an example of that would be either federal or provincial funding commitments being furthered or inclusionary zoning practices being allowed through the legislation. And those are some of the examples that were communicated to the province already as part of their consultation program.
Okay, and have you had any response?
I'm not sure, to my knowledge.
Through the chair, it's always helpful to reiterate our city interest in those matters.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. So, based on that, I'd like to, at the appropriate time, make a motion to direct staff to formulate a letter that encourages the federal and provincial commitments to affordable housing by increasing the number of options available to municipalities in Ontario in terms of the incentives that we can provide. And also, at the appropriate time, I'd like to second the motion that's being put forward by Councillor Etherington.
Okay, well, there is no seconders during committee.
Okay, all right. Well.
Councillor Fernandez.
So I've been listening. There's been a lot of discussion about the implications of some of these, I don't want to call them motions, or they're just points for discussion. So can somebody help me understand how many kinds of incentives, grants, or exemptions we presently have? And it may be not possible to give a wide scope, but we presently have in place for development within the downtown sort of central corridor. I'm thinking about the maps that we've had that sort of draw a purple swath from up about on Cedar Street, maybe a little bit beyond, and then all the way down sort of past Wellington, I think it is. I think that would be the correct area, and then spread out east and west.
Mr. Picard.
South.
Okay. All of that information is readily available. I don't have all the details, but I'm able to provide you with some high-level stuff right now. We do have a development charge exemption, which applies to our downtown and a slightly expanded area. We also have a downtown community improvement plan, and that community improvement plan includes a package of financial incentives most of those being fee reductions or fee exemptions that are made up or supplemented by tax supported funding mechanisms. We have a brownfields program that applies to the downtown, but it also applies to brownfields outside of the downtown. So that one there is not a downtown specific. Some of those programs do have an indirect effect of assisting with the provision of affordable housing, but they are not targeted. There are no criteria or check marks there. So that's it in a global sense. If members of the committee will recall, the Economic Development Division did do a comprehensive review of all our financial incentives some time back, and that full program was approved as revised and reaffirmed by committee and council.
Right, and I think I seem to remember one, the upper story improvement grant, the facade. Now I know that some of these are more business related than housing related, but those are already incentive programs that we already have in place. It may be really difficult and challenging to assess this, but do we have an understanding of what revenue that we may not be getting through some of these grants and exemptions? I mean, of course, it's offset by the fact that, on a brownfield site, we may not have had any revenue. It would just sat idle until the incentive was there, or an upper story was sitting empty until we had that incentive. Can we put a number? Can we quantify that, or is that a bit too broad to do?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I would respond by saying no, not at this time, but I do know from time to time the Economic Development Division does provide update information on the performance of the program, and it does include some metrics such as those that you are mentioning, but I don't remember the details right off the top.
Okay, so in looking at this motion from Councillor Etherington, there are quite a lot of efforts that are being asked of staff to look at. Are there ones in this recommendation that you could put a quantitative or qualitative understanding of how much time this would add to staff's workload?
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would say that other than the two that have been identified of not having a direct or indirect financial cost, but the ones that do, it would be considerable. We have not tried to quantify that because there would be quite a significant level of effort involved, and that is why we're also recommending that it be put into our business plan. Because that's work that needs to be programmed and needs to be quantified. So we don't have that quantified. But because we need to try and develop estimates of what the take-up would be and try to estimate what the financial impact would be, that's pretty detailed work, time-consuming work. And our suggestion is, and our hope is that if some of these are really off the table, it would be a great service to us to just have them taken off of the table at this time, so we could focus on those that have a strong possibility of getting approved by council at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'd be willing to do that, but I see that my time, I heard that my time is up, so I'll cue back in.
Sure. Councillor Galloway-Sealock.
Yeah, question of staff, I guess, or whoever wants to answer it. What will happen if the City of Kitchener moves forward with some of these more monetary incentives and the region and the City of Waterloo or the City of Cambridge don't have a program similar to ours?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we can only speculate. One of the things that staff have speculated, but we have not done a whole lot of detailed work on this, is that it could create a disparate situation where the City of Kitchener is overrepresented in that housing sector relative to these neighboring municipalities, because we would be creating more opportunities for it to happen here. So that is one possible outcome that we're speculating could happen.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, I don't know if Mr. May wants to answer this question, but I'm just wondering what staff's response would be to the motion that's currently on the screen.
Mr. May?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, if I could just repeat something that Mr. Pennard said, and maybe be a little bit more succinct, if I can. We have right now dedicated staff who are prepared to look at these types of development incentives. The more development incentives you make as priorities, the longer it will take and the less likely we'll actually get them done. So the more precise you can be, and I think we're having a good discussion today, but the more precise and focused you can be to not just say, go away and look at all 7, but to be very specific would be helpful. And so I look at Councillor Etherington's motion. The 2 I just want to flag for you to consider farther that have been put, I think, on a priority list by Councillor Etherington. The first being surplus land policies. In my time at the city, the idea of selling any municipal property as surplus is a very significant public issue. And so I just have a tough time believing that we would get to a place where that incentive would be approved. And so I'd suggest, if you're not prepared to take on that challenge, don't ask staff to work that up. And similarly, the expanded density bonusing. What this would be, we may say to a developer, yes, you can have, instead of 8 stories, you can have 10 stories, as long as in return we get some kind of affordable housing units. I think we've all sat around this table and know how difficult density in neighborhoods could be. And so are you going to actually be prepared to approve 2 new stories on a tower for these affordable housing units? So if you are, then leave it on the list. But if you're not, then please take it off and let us focus on the ones that may be successful.
Thanks for being succinct.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'm just going to ask you a quick question. Are you going to just deal with 1 through 7 separately when we get to that point? Because there's some, it's hard with, I understand where Councillor Etherington's coming from, but it's hard from my perspective to say, well, can you just take them all separately? Because I'm not going to be able to support them all.
Honestly, I think we should vote on every single one of these, and because
separately.
Yeah, separately.
Okay. I appreciate that Councillor Etherington prepared the motion.
Sorry.
I just think it's difficult to.
Sorry. Also, I think by approving this doesn't mean we're, but by having these recommendations, these don't mean that they're gonna be implemented. They still have to go. They still have to be vetted through budget and everything else. That's correct? Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's the other point I want to make. This is the beginning of a process. There is a lot more information council will receive where you'll decide whether you actually want to do this or not.
Okay, just in the interest of time, I'll just, I won't make any comments. I'll just say that I can support looking at number 4, number 7, and number 2, just with regards to the temporary reduction of a fee for a defined period of time.
Okay. Did you say 3? You want 3 on there too? Okay. Well. Okay. Okay, we'll go with the numbers that are on the screen. Councillor Etherington.
I've got an amendment on the floor. I understand where councillors are coming from on this, but I don't want to see us vote on.
Can you speak in your mic, please?
Sorry. I don't want to see these voted separately. The whole idea of this amendment that's on the floor is to set priorities. And that's the whole purpose of it. I mean, it says quite clearly that we will look at certain incentives and give them priority over others. The others are secondary, and there's 1, possibly 2, once I ask a question, that we'll take no action on. So I fail to see why we have to break them down and vote on each one.
In fairness, Councillor Etherington, I think the way you have it framed right now, I don't think anything would be supported. That's the way I kind of get the consensus of how I see things. So I think it's in benefit. The benefit would be for your motion is to go by piece. Well,
then you've got a problem, because I don't agree with you on that. I think This has been stated. This is the start of something, and I believe there will be support for it. By the way, before we go any further, I had one more question of staff. I had to ring in again. Can I ask that question?
Okay, since you have the floor, go ahead.
Thank you. Brandon, question. The question of surplus lands. Are you uncomfortable with that one? Because I'll gladly move it out of there.
Through the chair, generally yes. I think Michael May illustrated the point adequately.
Okay, well then in the amendment, and I'd be curious how you're going to deal with that, but in the amendment, the surplus land policies would be moved to the end with the parkland dedication. Now what that leaves, and I can't see what the problem is here, there are ones that we're asking staff to give priority to. There are ones that will get secondary priority when they can get to them. And then there are two that are right out of there. So I don't know what the issue is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. I'm wondering if there's any figures that would show the savings and value of how providing affordable housing lessens the need for other services like health and social services, thus creating savings there.
Mr. Stone?
Through the chair, I think we have some general idea or knowledge, but I'm not sure if Jeff from the region has anything in specific. We don't have any numbers offhand.
Mr. Schumacher?
Thanks. Through you, Chair. We have done some studies. I think the latest one was about 2009, where we looked at the savings from addressing homelessness by putting people into housing and supportive housing. And there are, we were able to quantify the savings. I don't recall the numbers offhand. But the issue is, some of the savings by addressing homelessness, by putting people into permanent housing, are savings at different levels of government. So there's less need for, less ambulance times, less hospital stays, which, of course, different levels of government benefit from that, and others don't. So. I'm not aware of any study in terms of the savings that the city could achieve.
Okay. No, I just I think that's important that we know that there is value in dignity and value in getting people into affordable housing. Thank you.
Okay. We will be going in the second round of questioning, but I do have a couple questions that I want to ask. And I guess my question is, this list is rather extensive, and knowing that we have these other areas of focus that has taken up all your time, how realistic is this for you guys?
Through the chair, we will commit some staff resources to this next year. To be direct, it'd be helpful if it was focused to maybe the top three.
Top three? Okay. Oh, you didn't? Sorry, Councillor Gazzola. Okay, that was my question. Go ahead. I didn't see you key in there.
My first question is, are any of these things in your current business plan?
Through the chair, there may only be one that is, and that's looking at the parking requirements. So we have started a process through our comprehensive review of the zoning bylaw to look at this matter, and also it comes into play when we do our parts work around the rapid transit. So, and actually Lauren's helping lead that right now, so we will be looking at the parking requirements already.
But it's there dealing with the issue of affordable housing, or is it there for another reason?
Through the chair, it's in the list as it relates specifically to affordable housing. Obviously, we're doing a review of all of the parking requirements, and so we would be looking at this as one aspect of
but not specifically just for affordable housing.
That's correct, but there would be some relation to it.
Oh,
so-
yeah, no, okay, that's fine. The other question I have, do you have any idea of the amount of staff time that is involved for any of these? Or all of these? Or how can we make a decision if we don't have some sort of, I mean, they're not on our business plan already. So how can we be making a decision if we have no idea of what's involved?
Through the chair, Mr. Pernard answered that a little bit earlier. It is hard to quantify the specific ones. Obviously, that's why we've put in the recommendation about adding it to the corporate business plan as a priority. That would be the mechanism for us to identify this work along with the long list of other things that planning and others are working on. If we're working on 3 items, that's obviously a different amount than 7. If any of them involve a community improvement plan, that is a decent amount of work. It does involve engagement. It involves other divisions, consultation with the industry.
Okay, that's fine. So what you're really asking here today is, do you want us to put this on our next business case and we'll look at it at that time?
Through the chair, I think we're looking at which of these specific ones are ones that we really should focus on. We will, if there's at least, through the chair, the answer is yes next year. And if it's at least one of them, then yes, it should be on the business plan.
Okay, I'll go back to my questioning. So my question is, if we were to proceed forward with this and pick whatever 3 recommendations to 7, whatever the recommendations are, what projects that are you working on that currently could be deferred and able to accommodate this?
Through the chair, that's where the consideration of the corporate business plan would be the appropriate time to do that. We'll have to go back and assess that over the next month or 2.
Okay. All right, second round of questioning. Councillor Singh.
Yes, thank you. I think the comments that Mr. May made were very helpful for me as well in seeing that we need to keep our recommendations as realistic as possible. Of course, I would like to see as many recommendations as on the table being supported, but it has to be realistic. So my question is, initially when I had, when this came before us as part of our priority list for staff to look at some of the incentive programs for more affordable housing units in Kitchener, I looked at a more diversified portfolio rather than a building being built or a neighborhood that's more economical for certain demographics of population. I don't see that as good planning. So out of some of these recommendations, what do you see that would better incentivize certain level of units in all our growth, all our development proposals? Is that too weighted of a question, or I'd like to see your. In my mind, I have 1 or 2 I think would, but I'd like to take your opinion as well.
Through the chair, that's a really good question, and that's something that Tina from our staff and others have put forward. Is this the city's role is really at looking at providing a diverse range of housing options for everybody. And that's why we don't necessarily have a specific program just for affordable housing. That's why the region has that mandate. Ours is a range of housing for everybody and all types. And so that's why we focus on slightly different items. There are many of these items that we have raised in terms of implications to other segments of development, that if we were just to look at waiving fees or exempting a process, is that fair for others that might be doing a sustainable development or low impact development, or they're providing this or providing that? It becomes, fairness and equity. Obviously, it's a challenging topic because there are things that we need to do to at least put it a little more balanced playing field for those that are providing affordable housing, so that they can move forward with these type of things. There may be one or two of these items, but I'd be interested to hear what the councillors' thoughts are on those specific ones. If we were going to look at a few of these, like density bonusing is one that we would look at, and that's going to apply to many community benefits. One of them would be affordable housing, but there could be up to, I think we have 14 or 15 on our official plan list. So
Right.
that's one example where it could benefit many forms.
And as part of what the planning department is already doing, and this adds additional work for you all, and I appreciate that. But isn't it kind of cohesive to what we're already doing anyways as part of our Crosby study, as part of our official plan amendment that we ratified? Does this not kind of work within that scope of work as well? Or when we look at more of a comprehensive planning approach that just speaks to aspect of affordable housing as well? Are there synergies?
Through the chair, there are some, and so yes, we are looking at the parking requirement through the Crosby project, to use one acronym, bonusing in downtown and the station areas through another acronym project, the Parks project. So there are some synergies there with both of those. I think what's being put forward is, does council want to go with a special additional program targeting this one segment of affordable rental housing to add something else?
Okay,
You
one
want
last
one
quick
more.
question. We could have all the incentives on the table. It's only going to cost us if there's an uptake in the community, in the development community, correct? Just because they're available doesn't mean it's costing us.
Through the chair, generally, yes, and that's why it's kind of hard right now to estimate what that number might be, because it is contingent on what might happen.
Are any on here that would cost us regardless if some of the recommendations?
Through the chair, the surplus lands one would have some implications, and I think that's what's been discussed already.
Okay. Good. And I'm just looking for clarity. When I think there's an important discussion at hand, the more clarity we have when we decide on these, the better it is for us. Thank you.
Definitely, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Verbanovich?
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. Two quick questions. In terms of sort of being leading and innovative on housing, what's the history of this city been for everyone's benefit in terms of that? And I guess I'm wondering if you can just touch a little bit on sort of the Kitchener housing history.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll initially answer that, and I will apologize. I cannot give a lot of information on the Kitchener housing industry, and I'm not sure anyone sitting next to me can as well. But as someone who's actually worked for 4 other municipalities, my perception is that the City of Kitchener has a policy framework that is perhaps the most permissive for the broadest range of affordable housing types of any of the municipalities that I have worked in, and is the most permissive for allowing housing types that tend to be more affordable as of right, without having a strong regulatory aspect where things are mandatory. It's just creating opportunities, and those opportunities do in fact see themselves on the ground. The City of Kitchener is very well represented when you're comparing the amount of affordable housing in Kitchener relative to many other comparable sized municipalities or to neighboring municipalities. And in terms of a take-up or a percentage of the regional share, the City of Kitchener is very well represented as well.
Okay, and the second question I had
Just hold on, Mayor. Mr. Wilmer?
Just to add to that then, regarding Kitchener Housing Incorporated, certainly that was a leading edge move by the City of Kitchener going back to the early 90s, where through that corporation we became the developer and manager of affordable housing. And we did that as a lower tier or local municipality, still acknowledging the region's role in housing.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the second question I had, in terms of this list of options, so I'm not sure where Waterloo's at on it, but Cambridge, I know a number of us sat in on their session down there. Is there clarity in terms of, are they kind of looking at the full range, or are they looking at specific ones?
My understanding is that they are looking at the development charges and at tax increment grants as their priorities, and are expecting a report to council later this year on those.
So like this year is in 2015?
This year, by
yeah.
December, presumably.
Okay. That's great. And then, Mr. Chair, in terms of comments on the motion, do you want me to make those now, or do you want me to
If
wait?
you're going to make your comments, I won't cue you back in if you make.
So you want me to do it now?
If you want to,
Yeah,
I won't
that's
cue
fine.
you back in.
Very quickly then, I think when we're talking about affordable housing, it's important that we remember that affordable housing isn't about social services. Affordable housing is really about growing the economy and giving people the fundamental housing choices that they need in order to have a decent quality of life in our community. In some cases, that may involve supportive housing. In other instances, it may just mean making sure that there is a variety of housing choices available on the open market to support people in a variety of careers, including some of the new people that are moving into our community to work in things like the tech sector, the manufacturing sector, and so on. It's about having that range of price points available so that we can attract and retain people in this community. It's also about economic growth. I mean, fundamentally, investments in housing, and this comes directly from the Conference Board of Canada, every dollar invested generates about $1.40 in GDP growth. So this is a positive investment ultimately in our community, and ideally it's in many instances coming from the private sector or in partnership with the other orders of government. This isn't a question of if there's going to be affordable, if there's going to be a focus on affordable housing. We know that the government that got elected made certain commitments, and if we assume that they're going to keep those commitments, this is really a question of how many dollars, what are the programs going to look like, and are we going to be ready as a community to take advantage of that from a partnership point of view. It's not a problem of a single order of government. It's fundamentally one that we all must work at together. And because we're a two-tier structure here, it's one that has to involve both the local government and the region. We've heard about the history that we've had as a community as being innovators in this area, and I think this is an opportunity for us to continue to do the work that's necessary so we continue to lead and innovate in this area. Fundamentally, it boils down to the fact that we can't, at various points in time, I've heard everyone talk about the needs for affordable housing in its different forms, whether it's supportive housing, whether it's about making sure there's choice in the market, whether it's student housing, whatever the case is. And so we can't be here, talk about those concerns, and not take some action. I think, and I'm assuming that Councillor Etherington is moving surplus land, as he indicated, into the no action pile. I think by focusing on the primary area of the three that are identified as the focus of energy by staff, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. Depending on where things go in the future, maybe we look at those other areas, but in the meantime, we've heard that that's a reasonable amount of workload, and it's, I believe, going to help make sure that we are ready to respond when fundamentally the federal government programs come forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fernandez.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to state very clearly that the only of the 7 that I would accept would be number 6. I'm not sure, maybe I have a question of the mayor. If you're referring to the list that was here, you said there were 3 that you said were acceptable, or that staff said that they could work on? Because I didn't hear that staff could work on any at this time, from what my understanding is. And I think that Mr. May was also indicating it would be important to understand which ones council can support absolutely at this time.
Well, I guess what I'm referring to is the motion that's in front of us, and I see 3 that have been identified as primary efforts: reduced parking requirement, property tax exemptions or grants, and expanded density bonusing to nodes. The surplus land policies, Councillor Etherington has indicated he's moved into the no action pile. I'll
just wrap up. I noticed the time is 10 to 4, and we've got another hour and a half scheduled. We've got a lot of delegations for the next item, so I'm hoping that we can get this resolved a little bit faster.
I hope all the time, but that never happens, so we're just going to have to go through the process. So those are your comments, Councillor Fernandez? Okay, thank you. Councillor Davey?
Thank you. First, I have a question of procedure. So assuming Councillor Etherington, for the moment, assuming Councillor Etherington's motion fails, does that mean we can't go back and vote individually in a subsequent vote on each item?
Well, I think we're still going to go through what this motion is, but I think we should just do each item one by one.
Okay, that might get a bit messy. Okay, so comments?
Go ahead.
I constantly struggle with the sphere of jurisdiction. I look at this in the same sense that I look at the refugee crisis, for example. It's a very, very important issue. I think every single person around this table cares about that issue. But the fact of the matter is we need to have clarity in government. And the reality is, in the research that our staff has done, this is not, a lot of these items are not within our sphere of jurisdiction. If there's no clarity, things get muddied, and we don't know who's paying for what. And in my vantage, it actually draws away from the actual cost of things when we have one municipality paying for something, another municipality paying for something else, and the province paying for something else. If you're truly, if the change you want to make in government is in affordable housing, then I respectfully submit that you have run for the wrong level of government. You should have ran for regional council or for the province. It's just not within our sphere. I do see items, and I supported to get to the place that we're in, okay? Because I knew there were some areas that fit within our jurisdiction that we could help that weren't going to be a cost to the City of Kitchener. And specifically those items are numbers 4 and 7, which I will support, which is, it's going to get a bit muddied, but that would be the parking and the density bonusing items. The other items are coming at a cost, and I struggle with it because we struggle to pay for the items that are within our jurisdiction. And I will always fight against when someone comes and says we need to spend on this thing that is the responsibility of the upper tier, it's the responsibility of the province, and even by our own director of planning's wording. In terms of our planning policies, we're already ahead. We already have more permissive rules in place for affordable housing. So yes, affordable housing is a very, very important issue. It's just not our issue. So as I said, I will support the parking and the density bonusing items, but no others.
Councillor Etherington.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I just did a quick look at these. We have 7 incentives proposed. 5 look like they're going to be considered, and 3 of those 5 would be given priority. So I don't know what the problem is. And I also don't, I would ask the clerk, before you deal with, because you seem to be heading in that direction, before you deal with them individually, the incentive items, I would ask for clarification on my amendment, because I still want to see this council vote on it. Now, Mr. Chair, could I now make my comments?
Go ahead.
So I think it's fantastic to see Kitchener, even in this waffling kind of way, prepared to accept its legitimate participation in an affordable housing program. I'm delighted to see us accepting, or appearing to accept, some responsibility for helping to ease the situation in Waterloo Region, where we've heard more than 3,000 names remain. The whole thing is stagnant. Those names remain on a waiting list for low-income housing. And as I asked Mr. Schumacher, those names represent at least 10,000 seniors, kids, and adults living in inadequate shelter in Waterloo Region. So in approving our program, or whatever we approve, as these in the list of incentives, we recognize that a larger share of jurisdiction for affordable housing has to rest with, a larger share obviously rests with regional government. But today we're looking at programs and incentives where Kitchener can and should, in my opinion, share with the region. This program is long overdue, and I would encourage councillors to show some backbone and help support this program, and we could iron out the details as it progresses. It's long overdue at the local level, and I'm just hoping that the new federal government will recognize the huge need for a meaningful housing policy and appropriate money to address this ongoing crisis. Putting aside all other factors, Mr. Chairman, I'd say from a dollar point of view, as the Mayor has already touched on, we have to be ready for that money to be coming down. I sit on Kitchener Housing with the committee chair and the Mayor, and I feel very strongly on this issue. Kitchener Housing is constantly preparing, hopefully, for money to filter down from above. And if we're not ready for that money when it comes, then, we might as well kiss goodbye to it. We should be ready for those programs, and we should do more in the way of affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment. Obviously, I think I made it clear earlier that I am in support of the City of Kitchener pulling its weight in terms of making affordable housing options more available. But to directly address Councillor Singh and Councillor Davies' comments that, well, we're already doing enough, or that this is not within our jurisdiction, I respectfully disagree. Councillor Singh mentioned about the parts and the Crosby. Sorry. I don't want to prolong the agony here. So I will address then just Councillor Davies' comments, because in fact, single-tier municipalities have the benefit of being able to provide planning approvals and zoning in addition to providing to being responsible for social services, and so their focus on affordable housing is more whole than the one that within our two-tiered level of government we can pull together. But we know that with Jeffrey Schumacher here at the table and others from within his area at the region, that the region of Waterloo is willing and interested and excited even to partner with the City of Kitchener so that together we can provide more fulsome incentives and programs for affordable housing. We're not going to. I will never support that we will take the brunt of I will never support that we would go ahead and go crazy with affordable housing options to the detriment of other essential programs here at the city. But we, as Councillor Etherington said, we need to be ready for when these programs and incentives are available to us from other levels of government. So let's direct staff. They're asking us for a top 3. Let's give them a top 3 to work on for future.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Just specifically because I was named, I wanted to clarify that in the staff's research, because there's the implication that single tier, lower tier, it's been very clear that the province has passed down social services of this type to the upper tier. In staff's research, they could find no lower tiers that are doing the kinds of things that are proposed here. My suggestion of supporting items 4 and 7 would put us at the forefront already of affordable housing. The reason other lower tiers aren't doing it, the reason that we're looking at it, it's not because we are smarter, it is not because we are more compassionate, it's because it's not within our jurisdiction.
Okay. Councillor Gazzola?
I'll try to be quite brief on this. I concur with most of the comments of Councillor Davey. I want to start out by saying that all of this is very good, and as human beings, we need to be concerned with it. I would love to see a cure for cancer. That would be a tremendous thing. And that's what a lot of this is. It's you know, there are a lot of good things here, and in the fullness of time, I'm sure I'd be prepared to support some of them. But as it stands right now, we're talking about a big gray area that the only direction we have at this point, we know what the province has allocated to the lower tier governments, and we know what they've allocated to the upper tier governments. Even with that in hand, I think over the years, this city has shown leadership in what they've done with Kitchener Housing and have participated and been prepared to participate. I don't know what the new federal government is going to bring in and what incentives that they will have. I'm sure at that time, when we have a clearer understanding, we will be prepared to do our share as any other lower tier municipality. At this point in time, there's too much gray area. Many of these issues that I see here, I'm leery of because I can see that developers profiting from these things as opposed to the people who actually end up in these homes. So at this point in time, I think actually the recommendation that staff have brought forward, I'm prepared to support that. On the second part of it, I just don't know how much time they have to do to be able to put those things on the table. If they want to bring them back like I think they're suggesting in next year's business plan, I'd be prepared to deal with it at that time. In the interim, if either any level of government is prepared to move in a different direction with this, I think we can get on board very quickly. We have shown that we can get on board very quickly with all of the grants and subsidies that have come down from the senior levels of government. So I don't think it's a question that we're going to be left hanging and not be able to participate. So at this time, I will support the first part of the recommendation. I mean, it points that to the region whose prime responsibility it is under the current governance that we have for municipalities. But for the other, I would look at them individually and decide if we want to ask staff to look at those in next year's business plan. I'm not prepared to have staff running off this year looking at these issues.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Singh?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm kind of saddened to see the narrow perspective by some of my colleagues here. And at the same time, tired to see the mentioning of lower tier, upper tier municipalities. When I see no one is suggesting that we bought, well, especially with the motion that Councillor Etherington has put forward with the suggestion of surplus land policy to be taken out, no one is suggesting that we go out there and start building units that are affordable housing, which I agree are not the City of Kitchener's mandate. It is the region of Waterloo, where we need to give our recommendations and our guidance and our input as to how they need to be positioned throughout the city so that we don't have neighborhoods that are just focused on affordable housing, but they're well diversified through our community. Beyond that, what we're suggesting right now to staff is a planning matter. I think we have to have a better understanding perspective of what we do as council members when we start saying this is not our responsibility. And I'm glad some have reiterated with their points that reduced parking requirements and perhaps expanded density bonusing is an aspect of planning that we can take effect in encouraging housing stock that is more equitable and affordable throughout our community. I think the motion that's before us doesn't expand it too far out. It does put forward additional suggestions, but at the same time, they're suggestions. I think we need to give staff an opportunity to go back and have a comprehensive review of seeing what's possible and what's sustainable and what our community wants us to take as initiative, as a lead role. And at the same time, with comments that Mayor Verbenovich has made, that from a federal level, there's a change in priority. And if there are additional dollars that can be leveraged through incentivized program that we can put forward, then we're better positioned for it. One comment I would like to make with the motion that's on the table through Councillor Etherington, I would like to see the deferral or reduction of development charges voted separately. I like the direction that it's going. I think it needs to be looked at. I think that is a good incentive that can encourage development for affordable housing units. But we have already made initiative through our downtown and expanded area to have deferral of development charges. I think because that program is already in place, I think this is something that needs to be deferred to as a review as part of our next phase of our development charge review, rather than us looking at preemptively and considering that outside of that review process. So I would ask that to be voted separately, as I would probably not support it. But everything that Councillor Etherington has put forward, I think it makes sense and it's common sense, and it is under a preview in trying to make good recommendations for planning matters.
Councillor Galloway-Sealock?
Yeah, I've been fairly quiet on the issue just because I think we all have to understand and remember what we're doing here. We don't have to agree with this full motion, and it doesn't mean that we don't have compassion or we don't want to support these initiatives moving forward. But what we've been asked to do here, and it was clear in staff's slide, is we have to tell if there's non-starters. We've heard over and over again that there's significant amount of work that has to go into each one of these in order to continue to move forward. And none of these would be on the table if they weren't possible solutions. And so we have to give the direction. And I understand Councillor Etherington has 2 that are non-starters on there. Unfortunately, I can't support a number of them at all because for me, they're non-starters. It doesn't mean that I don't want to assist in an area in moving forward with affordable housing. It just means, from my perspective, I don't think that it's something that we should do. Development charges, we already have the exemption area, and we need to continue to move forward with a lot of projects that we have that require funding from our development charges. And I would hate to see some of that be pulled back because we're giving more exemptions. And there's a lot of work that has to go in. So for me, there's a number that I have to take off the list right off the bat. I've already said that I will support the parking and the density bonusing. And I can support the part where we look at the application fees or the exemptions. But those are the only ones that for me, I can move forward with, and the rest for me are non-starters. And that's the direction I've heard from staff that they're looking for today. It doesn't mean down the road we can't look at some of those others if we want to move in that direction, but right now those are the 3 that are the starters that I would like to see move forward.
Okay, thank you. I'll make my comments. I know this is an issue that is, dear to some members of council, and it's dear to all of us, but more so in particular with others. What I found really interesting, and maybe it's because I've been a little bit naive on the subject, but this report opened up my eyes on how much work the region is doing when it comes to regards with affordable housing, and then when staff put in perspective all the policies and all the stuff that we're already doing that is already in there, and then you throw in the parts and everything else, we're doing a heck of a lot. And that's what opened my eyes. Is a lot of things that I've seen in this council is we've whenever there is a duplex issue or anything like that, we always, side with no duplexing, don't duplexing. Well, that's a form of affordable housing. Previous council, besides the 2 newest members, we had the issue with stacked townhomes. Well, if that's not affordable housing, I don't know what it is, and we put a hold on that. So, just because right now it's in the limelight, we have to focus on that, and I have to do something. I think that's the wrong approach. I think as well, with KHI. If anything, I think KHI is an arm's length with us, and is basically been doing the work that with affordable housing since inception. And if anything, Kitchener Housing is always looking at creating new developments. But I think to make it even more affordable, I think it'd be more beneficial if we were to give them breaks when it comes to application fees and everything else, because they're actually doing it. They're actually building the properties. I guess the way it is written right here, this is a big wish list, considering the amount of items that we have, and that there is a gray area, and staff has no idea the amount of time that it would take to deal with this. To me, is I don't even want to begin to tackle this, because it's just, again, it's just a lot of work, and the way it's set there, I can't support it. I could probably support if it was separated. I was trying to lead you on, Councillor Arlington, to pick one or two items if we did it separately that I could possibly support. But the way it is right now, I will not support it. So with that, we're going to take Councillor Davey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Anitis. I guess the suggestion was, granted the numbers are out of order, but I would ask that each of the individual items be voted on separately.
Okay, can you click in? Can you click in, please? Can you click in, Councillor Arlington? Because I have your motion up on the screen, I have to go off the screen. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Can I get some clarification from the clerk as to whether we have to vote on this before we vote on separate incentives?
Madam Clerk?
Through you, the Chair. It is to the Chair's discretion as to whether or not the items can be taken separately as per 25.8.5 of the procedural bylaw.
Okay. With that, then I will vote to take these items separately. Recorded vote. Point of clarification, Mayor Banovic.
So, and I'm fine with that, because that is also consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. But to be clear, what you're taking separately is that the first three would be a primary effort. So you would do the first one as a primary effort, the second one as a primary effort, the third one as a primary effort, and then you would deal with the next three as secondary efforts, yes or no?
I think you deal with them all as primary, and you pick.
No, because that's not what the motion says. And so if you're
Considering-
separating, I wanted that clarity there.
Oh, I see it now. Okay, I didn't see that secondary. Sorry, I didn't understand what you were saying. Okay. So, Councillor Gazzola?
I have a question.
Okay.
I want to know, if we approve these as we go through them, what are we approving?
Basically, what we're approving is staff to go back and do some research. And
Now or next year?
For next year, 2016.
Now, so you're asking them, if we approve it, they're going to put it in their 2016 list. Nothing happens right now.
Nothing happens right now, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Can we go to the chart where it has 1 to 7? I think that would be easier for everyone, because is that how it is in the order with in his motion? No? Okay. Can we go back to his motion then if it's not in that order? Okay, so we will go with. So we'll do the ones with the primary one. So that, in considering development incentives for the City of Kitchener, staff will focus on the primary efforts in the areas of reduced parking requirements. So we'll deal with requirement parking. So, okay, what it means is, I think in the essence of this motion was Councillor Etherington wanted to have 3 of these items dealt with significantly, and the other ones looked at once these other items are looked at. Okay. Call the question's been called, so we will deal with reduced parking first. It's been called recorded vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Can we go back to the screen again? No, the motion, sorry. Reduced parking. So the next item is the property tax exemptions. All those in favor, please stand up. 6. So, opposed? So that's carried. Expanded density bonusing to nodes. All those in favor, please stand up. Opposed? That's carried. And density bonus. Okay, now with the secondary, efforts to be focused on waiving the application fees or the exemption. Or the exemption. Oh, okay. Waiving of application fees. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so now we're looking at exemption as exemption, deferral, or reduction of development charges. All those in favor, please stand up. Opposed? Item fails. And the last one is to take no action on the surpluses and parkland dedication reduction. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. So we are one more. Yeah, we did them together. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we'll vote on the actual recommendation, 4-1. All those in favor? Recorded vote. Yes. That's the one we're voting on. All those in favor, please stand up. Opposed? Okay, you have your additional item that you wanted to bring forward. Can we please, clerk, have that on the screen? Councillor Marsh?
It's right here. So the motion is essentially a direction to staff to craft a letter to be approved by council, urging the provincial and federal governments to, let me just read it, demonstrate their commitment to affordable housing with more program options and financial commitments.
Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Chair, with the greatest of respect to council, I really would urge you to adjust the part where it's approval by council. That's just a whole lot of work. If you want us to do the letter, I think you could delegate it to the mayor to probably sign the letter and leave it at that, just from a staff report perspective.
Sure, no problem. I'm fine with that.
Is that what your comments were going to be, Mayor Vavanovich?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I don't know that we need to bring this back to council, and it's consistent with our advocacy work already in this, so we can certainly do that.
Okay.
But we can take a motion to support the letter.
Yeah. Okay. Is it recorded vote? Is that your recorded vote? Again?
Yeah, recorded vote called.
Okay. All those in favor, please stand up. We need our exercise. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Okay, so that completes item number 4. So we're up next is dealing with item number 5 in regards to the Iron Horse Trail Improvement Strategy. We do not have a staff presentation, but we do have several delegations, and I do want to remind our delegations that pursuant to Council's procedural bylaw, delegations are permitted to address the committee for a maximum of 5 minutes. You will receive a ding from the bell from Madam Clerk, meaning that you have about 1 minute left to wrap up your presentation. So we will go dig right into the delegations, and first delegation up is Ted Parkinson. Welcome, Mr. Parkinson.
Thank you. Okay, so first off, I'd like to congratulate the city and Josh and all the people involved. I think this was a great example of a real consultation process for the Iron Horse Trail, and I was on the Jane's ride/walk part of it, and also part of the group consultation at the in Victoria Park. So I think they got a lot of feedback, and a lot of it was good. There's an interactive map, so I really appreciate that. I'm very supportive of the Iron Horse Trail and all of the suggestions made in the report. And I live pretty close to the Spurline Trail, and it's been amazing what a difference that's made since it's been upgraded. And a lot of people in the area have talked about how great it is to get into Waterloo easily and to walk around. So I think that certainly trails are very important. I think the thing I like best about this proposal is the idea that we don't need to be satisfied with 3 meters. I said at the time in some of the consultations, why should we accept just 3 if we want to make it a really viable route? And so they've, I believe, recommended 3.6, because if you have a family walking and you have cyclists and they're trying to use it to commute, why not make more room? So I think that's a really positive element. So those are all the great things. But the one thing I wanted to speak about mostly was there is something I think that it's a big issue that is, it's on page 43, but it's the crossing, and particularly at Victoria Street. This was a hot spot on the map. If you looked at people who added on the interactive map, like everything was added around these crosswalks. And it says basically that we're going to put, stripes and show people where the bike should go. But the problem is this is a regional road. And I live close to the Weaver Street widening, and it seems there's a consistent issue. The city of Kitchener has really a lot of great proposals, and they do a lot of great things. Sometimes we don't mention the fact that there's another city called Waterloo that's pretty close, and we don't mention the fact that there's this other level of government, the regional level of government, and there seems to be a kind of there seems to be a lot of things missed in the gap that were missed on Weaver Street as well. And this is the example where we want to have a crossing. I mean, basically, everybody just goes through the traffic. And cyclists and pedestrians, nobody goes at the crosswalk, even though there's a nice sign that says you're supposed to. I suggested at the meeting that if you had a second traffic light that was synchronized with the main light, that you could easily have bikes going through. You wouldn't slow traffic down because it would be the same. It would be the same light, and it wouldn't cost as much as putting a tunnel under or whatever. So there are ways to address it. This report doesn't really address it. It says we're going to work with the region, and I think that somebody, I don't know who. I don't know if it has to be a councillor or somebody in staff. Somebody needs to take some leadership and go that a little bit further and resolve this issue, because it's really the main point. There are other places where it crosses, like at Union and Gage Street, and those can be handled in different ways. But this is a huge crossing, and it's right in the middle of the trail, and it's used a lot. So I think that that's the one failing I see. I mean, I haven't read every little bit of the report, but it's kind of the one thing that's missing, and I would hate to see that ignored with all the other great suggestions that are made, because it really needs someone to step up and follow that through. I would hate for, at the end of the day, we have a great trail. It's 3.6 meters wide, it's repaved, it's beautiful, it's got places to sit, and yet every time I go and try and cross it, Victoria, I have a nice dotted line, and I have the same issues that we have now. Anyway.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Parkinson. We don't have any questions for you.
All right.
Oh, or no, we do. Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, just one question of these two intersections that you're referring to. Right now, if you're using them, would you cross at the imaginary line going from one trail to the other, or would you just go to the intersection and play safe?
Well, I never go to the intersection, and so I'm doing something that's illegal. And I have never actually seen anybody go to the intersection because it takes like another 5 minutes or longer to loop around.
So it's an inconvenience going to the intersection, so you just wait till the traffic, there's a break in traffic, and then just make your way across.
Well, at rush hour, the traffic is so congested that you can just walk through anyway because it's pretty much stopped there. And otherwise, you wait for a break, and traffic kind of knows that you're coming, and they sort of slow down too. So.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Gazzola, we do. Some more questions are coming up.
Yeah, you've read most of the recommendations and all of that. When do you see these being put into place in your mind?
Did you? Sorry, what was
when do you see all of the recommendations in the report being put into place?
Well, I think some recommendations should have a priority over others because I only had limited time. I mean, and it was my opinion and the opinion of a lot of the riders who were at the meetings. We were in favor of the things like pave the trail, widen it, do all of these great things. The things like and have a bench and make the parkland areas, enhance those. Those weren't to us that important because not many people go on the trail so that they can sit down on a bench and look at the trees. Most of the people go on the trail because they want to get from one place to another, whether it's walking or cycling. So I guess I would see it being phased in, some things prioritized over others. But I hope with 2017, 2018, some kind of time frame.
So you would like to see the main issues that at least you're interested in to be in place by, let's say, 2018?
Yeah, I mean, I don't use the trail as much now anyway because there's so much construction and it's actually harder to get to it from where I live. So it's not, I don't use it as much as I used to. But by 2017, they tell us that transit will be around. So it would be great if we're all running on all cylinders by then.
All right, thank you. And just for the record, you should watch when I go. I always go to the lights, so I'm not fast enough to get it across the crosswalk.
Thanks, Mr. Parkinson.
Thank you.
Our next delegation up is Mr. David Kane from the Kitchener Easy Riders Bicycle Club.
Right.
Welcome, Mr. Kane.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mayor Vranovich, and City Councilors. I'm here on behalf of the Kitchener Easy Riders Bicycle Club. Our club strongly endorses the Iron Horse Trail Improvement Strategy. We feel that the physical, safety, and accessibility aspects are a priority and deserve proper funding. The city has to satisfy the requirements of a lot of trail users. One thing that all users have in common is the need for safe street crossings, and that is our biggest concern as a bicycle club. Our club is dedicated to providing safe cycling for fun, fitness, and fellowship for people over 50 in Waterloo Region. Our club has grown significantly in the past few years as more retirees look for active pursuits. Our membership this year was 220. We have 67 people on the waiting list. So next year we're going to increase to 240. This increase in our membership reflects the need within our community for better recreational infrastructure. We bike every Monday morning from April to October. 5 of our 29 bike rides use the Iron Horse Trail. Our club members have a lot of experience using the trails, and last Monday, our final ride of the year, was on the Iron Horse Trail. And I'd just like to highlight a couple of the crossings as to illustrate the kind of problems that we see with the Iron Horse Trail. The first crossing I'd like to highlight is at Union Street. This is a city street, and clearly you'll have the opportunity to do what the city wants here. It has a central boulevard, and it makes for a long crossing. And what you have to do to go across there is go out in the middle and take your chance and wait out in the middle of the road, because there's another street that comes across there. The strategy has a proposal there for a refuge island, and we think that that would make an excellent, safe process for getting across the street. The other problem is there's no indication to motorists that the trail crosses Union Street. The strategy proposes pavement markings and signage as well. We think that's a great idea. The other one is Victoria Street, was already referred to. Our club recommends going down to the stoplight and crossing at Strange Street. This means you have to go on sidewalks. We don't want bicycles on sidewalks. And what we need is a safe crossing across Victoria, and we're going to have to work with the region on that. Finally, our club members were actively involved in the strategy development, and we would be happy to work with the city going forward to be part of any of the design process. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Kane. We do have one question for you from the committee. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, are your members also from Waterloo? You're not just solely a Kitchener organization.
No, we have members from all over the region. We are operating under the auspices of the City of Kitchener's Downtown Community Center, and all our riders have to be members of the Downtown Community Center. But we have members from all over the region.
Are you in support of all of the recommendations that are in the report?
I guess basically we are. The only thing would be priorities, and I can see that lighting is important for certain aspects, but I would see that being delayed. Our focus would be on getting the trail properly paved, widened, and give us safe crossings.
Okay, could I ask you also when would you see to have these priorities in place by?
Well, it would be good to kind of do this in conjunction with the light rail transit completion, 2017.
So you'd like to see everything in place by the end of 2017?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We do have some more questions for you. Councillor Etherington.
Mr. Kane, welcome to committee. It's good to see you. Can you tell me, within your membership, do you recommend that each cyclist have a bell or horn?
Yes, we do. Of course, we recommend a helmet, even though it's not required by law for people over, 16, and a bell and a whistle along, as well as reflectors, that type of thing.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just wanted to make a quick comment. I remember a couple summers ago, and I drove by you guys, and I was like, look at this gang of bicycles. You guys look like a hardcore group of outlaws, but no, it was really great to see you guys cycling in the area. Thanks.
Good. Councillor Gazzola joined us there a couple of years ago for a ride, and we'll be offering rides to other city councillors if they'd like to do that. Thank you.
Thanks. Next delegate is George Abraham.
Would I explain to remember, just press over when you're ready, okay? Okay. You're welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Abraham.
Hello, everyone. This is George Abraham, artist. I'm here for... Okay, someone pressed this for me. I didn't press anything. Okay, this is the... we cannot separate this improvement
Can you please speak
strategy.
into the mic, sir?
Sorry?
Yeah, can you please speak into the mic? Maybe we need to, Madam Clerk, if you could raise...
Yeah. Is that okay?
We'll make it a little more comfortable for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that okay? Yeah. Thanks for having me here. This is the first time for me to speak to the committee. I have the honor. I received this PDF file. This is a huge study about the Iron Horse Trail, very appreciated by the people, and I have the honor to participate. But I couldn't imagine that we can separate the Iron Horse Trail from what we see right now. These are 160 meters of rusty corrugated steel piles along the trail. You can see the trail in the top left corner there. I took this picture just 3 meters from Madison for this picture. So it is impossible for the people to be blind not to see this terrible image. The writer at the record, while she was talking about what I did in the Iron Horse Trail, about my art project, I'm going to take the last minute to talk about that. She described this image or these walls as urban blight. So this is the article in the record for the edition of July the 7th. Let's move to the third. This photo is taken from Cortland, and this is more important because these are not only the Iron Horse Trail users. There is a plaza there, the Stampede Corral Plaza. There are a bus stop that are Cameron High School are using these, are seeing these images every day. So it's not just about the Iron Horse Trail, it's about more people dealing with that. So let's move to my proposal. So this is This was my proposal to prime these walls with a primer or with anti-rust paint, but 2 days ago, when I took a closer look to these walls, the rust has damaged these walls so badly. So this proposal is not going to work. So I didn't have the time to send you another proposal. It's going to be here. It's going to be here. So you can imagine this. We need to build a wall, adjacent wall to these steel piles, so that the steel piles work as additional reinforcement. So the proposal is about building a concrete wall, maybe 6 inches, and that's all about. There are holes on the top, needs to be covered by concrete. Also, the rusty water accumulated in these holes and damaging the walls too. Needs to be treated. What else? After building these walls, to avoid the graffiti artists from taking over, we need to do some arts there, inviting the students from University of Waterloo or local artists. Let's talk about a little bit about my art project. On the other part of Cortland, on Sterling Street, you can see this, my art project that I did. I did 20 murals there. I primed these walls, 200 feet of primer, 2 layers. And I did 20 murals there. It is approved by the public, but unfortunately the city turned the blind eyes for this art project. I will receive any question if you want. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Abraham. We don't have any questions for you.
No question?
No questions.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question for staff. Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, just because Mr. Abraham is here, we talk about some public art along the trail on 5-5. Is what Mr. Abraham is talking about, is there any opportunity for us to work with him, and what our recommendations are for public art?
Mr. Joseph?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We did keep the recommendation related to public art pretty general, in the sense that we heard from a lot of different members of the public on locations for public art. So this was one, the railway underpass was another, blank industrial walls along the trail. Like, some of these are in private ownership. Some of these, like the one pictured here, there might be liability issues or safety concerns. So I think moving forward on any type of public art, we probably would just need to engage with arts and culture staff and any other affected departments. So in this case, stormwater.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next delegation up is Lorraine Grenier. Welcome, Ms. Grenier.
Hi, how are you guys? Good afternoon, Chairman, Mr. Mayor, and Council. We're talking about the Iron Horse Trail. Bylaw has not yet passed any restrictions on bikes in that path. Bells, you don't have to have one, and you don't have to have a light either. So that's my problem, because when I walk there, they're coming up behind you, no bell, boom, they almost knock you off your feet. So that's one of my issues. The Highway Traffic Act is the only act that instills the law of having a bike and a light, and that's on a roadway only, not inside the park, not on the trails. So, as a resident of Region of Waterloo, 51 years, and a constituent, I want to point out some issues, about some dangerous issues regarding the Iron Horse Trail. Where's my what do I press? that one? Okay. Okay. There. Sorry, it wasn't up there. Okay, there. That's the entrance at. What happened to Mr. There he is. There's Mr. Mike Wagner. Yeah. His plaque is right at the entrance, right there. This is the trail going down Mill Street. If you want to look at that, you can see this right from the trail. You see the roadway right up there? I looked to my right and I went down there. You should see what's there. We've got syringes, diapers, etc. It goes on and on. That's a view from the roadway up there too. People living there. Baby blankets, diapers, syringes, condoms, just there's a tent, tampons, food rotting, just trash, extreme footprint to our environment. That is at the end of the trail just heading towards Cortland. We have got broken glass, beer bottles, liquor bottles, syringes, saline tubing, arm tie-offs, extreme. Oh, this is a stolen copper wire. This, I'd say, was 4.5 feet high and 6 feet wide. Most of the trees have this wire tied around them because they stretch it out and cut it with wire. They sell it for drugs. There's syringes. Look at this. There's a drug deal going on right there. We witnessed it, myself and my son and my dog, right there. And these are businesses. This is at the end of the trail. Oh, they had a bonfire there too. They burned some couches and chairs, which were on the Victoria Park Island. These, there's one of the couches that was brought there from the island. There's so many syringes there, I couldn't count them. I just couldn't count them. You see the tubing. I took the syringes. I have my containers. They are everywhere down there. Now, when I see dirty diapers, baby clothes, syringes, and condoms together in one area, I get very disturbed. It's very disturbing to me. Look at this. Here's inside of it. Children's clothes in there, baby clothes and diapers. That bucket was used as a toilet. There's needles in there also. There's a condom. Anyways, Iron Horse Trail, that's an outdoor steel syringe box that can be bolted into the ground. I don't know, I thought it would be something that would be a thought for the future, since syringes end up on the ground down there. If you put sorry. I'm out of time. I also attached this funny little thing that Mark Yancey wrote to the record a couple years ago about the trail and the land, and I just thought you might want to be interested in reading it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Grenier. We don't have any questions for you from members.
Okay. I don't know how to turn this off. How do I turn it off? Or just leave it? Okay. There's a doll, condoms, and some syringes right there. This is all along the trail.
Okay. Our next delegates, and I think you're coming down as a pair, is Gwyneth Mitchell and Peter Davies from the Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee. Welcome.
Hello, how are you today? You get to go first.
All right. Thanks for having us today. I'm representing the Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee, and I'll be reading a letter that was written by Peter on behalf of the committee. At the most recent full meeting of the Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee of the City of Kitchener, October 13th, 2015, the members unanimously voted to support the Iron Horse Trail improvement strategy as presented by City of Kitchener staff. The Iron Horse Trail is currently the most important separated active transportation infrastructure in our city. Not only does it connect cities, not only does it connect cities and act as an important link in the Trans-Canada Trail, it facilitates active transportation, commuters, and recreational users. It's a nexus to numerous downtown Kitchener festivals, connects to virtually every ward in the City of Kitchener via feeder at infrastructure like the Harry Strum Greenway, and offers culturally and historically significant narratives. At peak times, the trail is at its carrying capacity. Bi-directional and multi-use, there is no longer the requisite width to accommodate the maximal number of users, and it's well used in every season. So well used that the asphalt is at the end of its useful life. The commitment to improve the infrastructure should also be the requirement for more frequent winter maintenance, keeping it accessible for everyone all the time. We at the KCTAC believe that this staff proposal, that although it comes with a significant capital requirement, will meet active transportation needs along this corridor for years to come, and it will continue to offer cultural and recreational opportunities for both visitors and residents to the City of Kitchener.
So that's part of the record that's appended to the staff report. Chair, Mr. Mayor, members of the committee, clearly we are in support of the initiative. Replacing the decayed pavement, widening the trail, offering cultural and placemaking opportunities are all important ends, and those are all outlined in the staff submission. I recently rode the Spurline Trail with Waterloo Record reporter Terry Pender. I was in the Monday's edition, but we had some interesting things to chat about, and one of the things that came up in our chat was the idea of an evolving standard for trails. And today the Spurline represents the evolution of the standard in a separated active transportation pathway. At its completion, it will be wide, lit, signed, and beautified. And we need to respect the evolution of the standards in trail infrastructure as we consider updating and modernizing the IHT. We need to show leadership to our sister municipalities. And I think we should marvel at how an unused rail line has been repurposed and allowed hundreds of thousands of trips by people each year to walk and bike and use mobility devices to access businesses and parks and places and homes and events along the trail. That's our presentation.
Okay, we do have a question for you, a couple from a few members. Councillor Gazzola.
I just want to ask you the same question I've asked everyone else. The first part of it, you've already said that you agree with all the recommendations in the report. Could you tell me when you would expect to see all of those recommendations in place?
Well, I think that specifically important recommendations are widening and replacing the asphalt and lighting. I think those are the two things that have to happen as soon as possible. We saw the spur line be nothing at the beginning of this year, and it's virtually complete here in November. So could it happen in a year? It can. It's going to require funding and some initiative. When is a realistic timeline? We don't control the budget, but I would say that we have a realistic expectation of it being done in 2017, 2018. We were able to get Margaret Avenue Bridge, $6 million project. That got funded and completed very quickly. I don't see that we should have much more difficulty than that.
And you included the lighting in your...
I'm sorry?
You included the lighting in your
Yes.
expectation. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, I'd like to second the widening and the lighting as priorities too, because often I'll be traveling the trail when it is dark, and I live in the Victoria Park area. So often I won't go down the trail at night. I'll take Park Street, but I would feel safer on the trail if it was lit as opposed to having to take the road instead.
Thank you.
Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, question to both of you. In light of the previous delegation that had the visual display of all the garbage and issues of the mess throughout the Iron Horse Trail in certain sections. Do you encounter that as well when you travel that, and do you encounter those homeless people or whoever they are that are living and doing drug deals, etc., in that area in terms of your travels?
In all honesty, from my perspective, I honestly don't see that at all. That it may be there is possible. I'm usually on a bike, so that's pretty quick. I'm usually traveling fairly quickly through there. One of the parts of the initiative is to form some sort of stewardship committee that would specifically look after the Iron Horse Trail, and that may be able to, alleviate some of the concerns of debris and detritus that are on the sides of the trail.
I do see stuff like that. I'm on the Iron Horse Trail just about every day. I find that it does get cleaned up pretty quickly, and I don't know. Those kind of things are part of a bigger issue than the Iron Horse Trail itself. So I'm not sure what kind of solution I could suggest.
I think lighting that trail might go a long way to alleviating some of those concerns as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. My question is specifically on the lighting, and it's not in the recommendation, but the lighting piece alone is the same, exactly as it turns out, estimated to be the exact same cost as everything else that we're planning on doing for the Iron Horse Trail. So I'm going to ask you a question that we often get faced with, and that is, if you had the option of either lighting the Iron Horse Trail or doing the same thing we're doing for the Iron Horse Trail for another 4.5 kilometers within the city, which would you choose?
Well, we saw that conservatively there's 250,000 trips down that Iron Horse Trail per year right now. So I think it's an equitable use of city funds to light the Iron Horse Trail. I don't see that it's an equity situation as much as anything.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Joseph.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to clarify there's actually a typo in the report. So the lighting costs are actually clearly stated on page IX in the appendix, and it's about 1.5 million.
Oh, that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to both of the delegates, thank you very much for coming in. I had one question about lighting. Are you aware that a lot of the people who live along the trail, particularly in my ward, which includes Victoria Park, are opposed to lighting?
I'm aware of that. It's really interesting to see what the Spur Line has done, because they've used really the most modern of technologies. It's LED, it's focused, there's very little light spillage, economical to operate. So I think if you would have asked me that question 5 years ago, I would have had to side with the residents in that lighting the trail would really negatively impact them. We don't have those concerns anymore.
And that relates to the concerns about shadow and increased safety.
Sure, light spillage, being able to control the light so that it's precisely where it should be on the trail to protect the users. We've had unfortunate outcomes on the trail in the past because of lack of lighting. So it'd be great not to have those.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, it's not a question, but in relation to the information about garbage and homelessness and all the other stuff along the trail, we're aware, and bylaw is aware, and the police are aware of people crashing along the trail between Madison and Mill Street up at that end, and people are acting on that as we speak.
Okay, thank you for that update. Councillor Gazzola, did you not have? Okay, when you're okay, Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Peter and Gwyneth for coming in and clarifying that question about the lighting. I think you're right. We've come a long way. I don't really have a question for you. I just wanted to. I think it's good to have that other perspective about different things that we can see happening. I guess my question would be, considering all of the work that's been done around the city for cycling trails and bike lanes, do you feel that the Iron Horse Trail is the most significant piece of infrastructure right now that we need to be looking at?
Currently in the city of Kitchener, the Iron Horse Trail is the most important piece of separated cycling infrastructure that we have. The other separated ones that are completely separated would be Harry Sturm and Lakeside Trail. We really don't have anything else. And those are all multi-use trails. So they're not just cycling specific, they are for anybody that's interested in active transportation. The Iron Horse Trail really collects all the users and brings them all into one place. And so its importance is in the volume of use that it's getting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gwen?
Oh, yeah, and well, I use the Iron Horse Trail every day. I'll walk my dog on it or walk to City Cafe. I also run on it, and I'll ride my bike to North Waterloo to see family and friends. Also, in June, I think it was, I participated in one of the info sessions near Sterling, and we found there's just so many different kinds of people that use the trail, and it would be great if it was, maintained, and if the asphalt was smoother, because a lot of people with mobility issues will travel the trail as well. We had 3 talk to us just in an hour of being there. So it's for everybody, and it's a really busy trail.
Thank you. I agree. I was there as well with staff, and at the appropriate time, I'd like to move this recommendation.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's all the questions we have. Next delegation up is Dana Christian and Ruth Cameron. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Dana Christian, and I'm the Women's Community Development Coordinator at the AIDS Committee of Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, and area. I'm also a member of the agency's prevention team, as well as a member of the Safe and Healthy Community Advisory Committee here at the City of Kitchener. In my role with the AIDS Committee, I work to identify and address barriers in our community which could have a negative impact on the health outcomes of the populations that Aqua serves. This is what caused me to become involved with the safety audit of the Iron Horse Trail. I was very impressed by how important it was that a wide range of stakeholders be consulted when creating the strategy. I realize that when undertaking such an extensive consultation of the community, some concerns were understandably lost to those of the majority. Many of the parties interviewed during the community consultations would not have shared Aqua's focus on harm reduction and addressing social determinants of health. That is why we wanted to take this opportunity to speak to the need for harm reduction when ensuring that the improvements to the Iron Horse Trail create a trail which is accessible to the diverse population that it currently serves.
Good afternoon to the Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Ruth Cameron. I'm the Executive Director at Aqua. The AIDS Committee of Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, and area is one of 32 AIDS service organizations supporting people at risk living with and affected by HIV in Ontario. And with our focus on harm reduction, prevention, support for people, both individuals and families challenged by poverty, HIV stigma addictions, and other barriers to social inclusion, we thank you for the opportunity to speak about some of our concerns related to surveillance along the Iron Horse Trail. We fully support all of the measures that increase accessibility for all residents to use the Iron Horse Trail. Many of the lower income people that we serve access the trail both for leisure and a way of getting around town when they cannot afford public transit. And we think that it is a really excellent example of an important equity measure, and it's also part of augmenting a complete streets policy. We have concerns about some of the actions recommended by for crime prevention through the environmental design audit, and that they might contradict the harm reduction focus currently used by bylaw officers and enforcement, and the harm reduction focus recently enhanced by Waterloo Region Police Services in their focus or the proposal to use diversion for certain infractions rather than criminalizing individuals when the circumstances warrant that. We have a special and unique focus to bylaw enforcement and crime prevention in this region, where it seems that there's not a desire to spend precious resources on regulating and criminalizing minor offenses, but rather diverting appropriate issues to other supports for alternative forms of resolution. With regards to the Trail Watch program recommendation, we'd like to ask for clarification of the intent, goals, and composition of the group. How will we ensure that the group is democratic in their monitoring of the trail and not privileging the concerns of homeowners adjacent to the trail over other users from the community, so that we're ensuring access to people with very limited means and multiple barriers to inclusion and access in our community? Last but not least, I'd just like to point out that, to my knowledge, Ms. Grenier's claims regarding the scope of hazards to the public with regards to local trails and parks hasn't been substantiated by any local law enforcement or bylaw enforcement. She has, however, contacted myself, other Aqua staff, and agency volunteers on numerous occasions by telephone and email and through social media, and communicated her viewpoints in an aggressive and threatening manner.
Okay, thank you, and I think Mr. Joseph has took down those questions that you wanted me, and he will address you via email. But Councillor Gazzola, do you have a question for the delegations?
I did want to ask, you've read the report, obviously, and you're concerned that all the harm reduction tools, or what should be done, are not in place with the recommendation? Is that your point?
Our concern is just for some points of clarification with regards to the trail watch that is being recommended, with regards to assuaging any fears around safety for users of the trail. It's not that we're saying that a trail watch shouldn't occur, but that we want to make sure that there isn't a privileging of some constituents' concerns for safety over making sure that the trail remains open and accessible to users from across the region. As we stated, many of the individuals that we support do use the trail to get around when they cannot afford public transit. We just want to make sure there aren't barriers for individuals with mental health concerns, for example.
Would it be fair to say you have these concerns whether we do anything with the trail or not at this time?
It would be fair to say that we're concerned about increased regulation for individuals who might want to use that particular public space in the region.
Thank you.
Okay, keep yourself in, Councillor Gazzola. Thank you. I have no further questions. Actually, Mr. Joseph, were you going to make an additional comment?
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to kind of speak to that item directly right now. The Trail Watch program, which for everyone else in the room, it's basically modeled after basically other best practices where citizens kind of get involved in trail stewardship activities and kind of just keep an eye out on like suspicious behavior or illegal activities, or even just kind of handing out information to people on the trail. One of the recommendations that are in the strategy talks about developing some kind of Friends of the Iron Horse Trail group. So basically, once, should this get approved, a group of citizens that then would kind of work together to make sure that these recommendations are put into place. I think that would probably be the platform where, yourselves could come at that group and make sure that your concerns are heard, because I totally hear what you're saying about the marginalized populations and the need to kind of interact and make sure that we're thinking of those people. And so we'd want you at the table at that kind of discussion for sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you. Councillor Gazzola, you have questions to staff?
Yes, I have a few. Can you, I'm not sure that I'm picking everything up. Can you tell me what is the total cost of what is being recommended? I'm looking at pages 72 and 73, and if I add those all up, it comes up to $5,044,000. Is that correct? Or?
Mr. Joseph?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the chart on page 72 outlines the capital costs that are recommended in the strategy. So that's at a cost of $2.5 million, and it's based on different themes. Basically, we heard from the public, we got all these comments, we tried to kind of capture and put them all in relation to each other. So those are those costs. And then, as I said, on page 73, there's actually a typo in that lighting table. It should be 1.5 million for the cost. So you have 2.5 plus 1.5 at a total cost of 4 million. The maintenance costs are just more for information purposes. Should we, move ahead with installing all these additional features on the trail, it is likely that additional maintenance costs may be needed. So it's just kind of giving a heads up that, in terms of benches and picnic tables and signage, like you need to kind of allocate costs to maintain those in a good condition. But that isn't being included as part of this recommendation moving forward.
Okay, so if I understand, then the capital costs for this project are $4 million. And then you set out are those all the maintenance costs? Can you, for example, one of the questions I have, what do you do now as far as winter maintenance is concerned?
Through the chair, just to clarify the costs a little bit more, if you refer to the executive summary, page 8 and 9, it's a little clear. We do have a typo on page 73, so if you refer to the executive summary, it does outline the 3 priorities for the 10-year forecast, which total $2.5 million. And then on page 10 of the executive summary, it identifies the 10-plus year priority, which is the lighting strategy, at $1.5 million. So you can find that in the executive summary on page 8 and 9.
It's the other page 8 now. Well, so am I still correct that it's $4 million for capital?
Correct, beyond the 10-year, but at this point, we're recommending the 10-year forecast of $2.5 million be considered in the capital forecast.
To do $4 million worth of work?
At this point, we're recommending that the 2016 and 25 capital refer to the $2.5 million as priority A, B, and C be recommended to the capital forecast. The lighting is a longer-term strategy that we recognize capacity-wise might be a challenge for the city.
Oh, okay, so that's not included. That's fine. What are the operating costs? What are they now, and what will they be?
Through the chair, I don't have the operating costs in front of us, but we can certainly report back on that. It is winter maintained currently. I think that was one of your questions, and so that would continue on. So I don't see a change in cost there, unless we see a higher desire for a service level increase there.
Okay, if the roads if the trails are expanded, there would be increased costs, would there not? Or?
Again, I'd have to go back. I'm not sure whether this is a area that we do more than a single pass, if we do the full width, or in the wintertime it goes down to a single pass with our equipment, and we maintain similar to the width of a sidewalk. Some areas we do that, and some it's not. I'm not familiar specifically with the full width of maintenance on the Iron Horse there.
I'd like to ask a few questions about this study. Can someone tell me what the study cost, and who paid for it?
Through the chair, the study was done by staff internally. The only consultant we used was to assist us with a little bit of the public consultation. Generally, it was a staff internal study.
Okay. Well, that's very impressive. It's very well done for that. So there was no cost then to us, or other than our staff cost.
There were some minimal costs where we engaged a consultant to assist us with some of the consultation on the trails, some of those discussions we had actually on the trails, and some of the public meeting coordination.
Okay, my one other question I had was, I tried to understand. I have two things. I tried to understand the trips or users. Now, when those counts are recorded here, are they trips or users? Because if I go down, when I go along, I'm going somewhere and then I come back. Do I count as one or two?
Okay, Mr. Joseph?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So it's actually the 250,000 figure that you see is actually the trips on the trail. So technically, if you're biking past it and going back, it doesn't represent 250,000 people. You can assume that thousands of people are likely to use the trail to generate those numbers, but it's just the density of use on the trail.
Okay.
And just further clarification, the 250,000 was really our counts from approximately May to August. So that's not a full year count. We don't have that yet. So we anticipate that count could be close to 500,000 over a year.
Okay.
I saw that your counts were, from February to...
From basically, I think it was May to August.
Yeah. Okay, my final question is...
Councilor Gazzola, can you cue back in? Your time's up.
Well, here, let me just, quick little question. On
Okay, I already gave you the latitude, but go ahead.
On 5.7, you clearly state out all your recommendations. How difficult is it to add another column or provide us with the cost of each of those recommendations? You've got total cost. You must have the information somewhere, but it would be nice to see what cost goes with each one of the recommendations. In case we can't do them all next year, we have to pick and choose. Is that a difficult thing to do?
Through the chair, many of the recommendations, what we've done is we've broken it up into themes. So in some respect, some of that has been done. We could further break it out to each recommendation and have a cost. Some recommendations actually won't have a cost, some will.
But if you could break it out, you have the figures, it would be helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, some fast, I hope, questions of staff. First off, Judge, it's an excellent report. I loved reading it and watching it develop. Again, get back on my hobby horse. There was a lot of concern, as far as I know, expressed about sharing of the trail. And that gets me again to the issue of bells and horns and cyclists that many times have almost creamed me on the trail. What are you doing about that? Are you doing educational work or, God forbid, enforcement of that? That's the question.
Mr. Joseph?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are a number of recommendations in the strategy that talk about the need for increased bylaw enforcement on the trail, more signage and wayfinding that clearly states what the rules are and what the expectations are. We also talk about developing an awareness program with the Cycling Advisory Committee, so maybe that's something that would happen a couple times a year during the busy months of the trail use, where you have volunteers out there handing out free bells or giving information on sharing the trail. One of the comments we heard a lot from the public was sort of this interest in separating cyclists and pedestrians on the trail. I think it's a great idea, and where you have room and resources to do that, go for it. But on the Iron Horse Trail, there are areas where the trail narrows, where you wouldn't be able to keep that width consistent throughout the entire trail. Right. So we recognize sort of the conflict, and that's why we've recommended to go to 3.6 meters with an education and awareness campaign. That should be enough, if done properly, to kind of increase kind of the behaviors of the users.
And I've been on other trails where that certainly works. My second question, and again, it's based on complaints that I get, I was bewildered by the fact that you appear to be approving or asking for approval of e-bikes. I can understand handicapped scooters, mobility issue people, but the recommendations on, I believe, page 66, 67, I've heard nothing but complaints from people, again, who almost get creamed by e-bikes, not only on our trails, but in some of our larger parks. Do you have any comment on that?
Mr. Joseph?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the recommendation actually says that we should be looking with our city parks bylaw to look at whether that should be something that should be prohibited on our trails. Because similar to what you're saying, a lot of people had concerns about that. They didn't want to see the motorized scooters on the trail for good reason. They're large, they're clunky, they travel at greater speed. So if, one were to hit a pedestrian, for example, there's serious risk of injury there. Now, there isn't clarity in the Highway Traffic Act in terms of what that means. So each municipality is dealt with kind of dealing with it on an individual basis. I did flag this with bylaw, so it's sort of something that needs to kind of be vetted through and figured out. But I would say for the most part, the public is not in support of it. There is a difference though between pedal assist kind of bikes, right? Yeah. So if you kind of hook a unit up to your bike that kind of just helps you pedal a little bit more, I don't really see anything wrong with that because it's still a regular bike. It's pedal powered. There shouldn't be any concerns, but when we're talking about like big clunky e-scooters, yeah, I think that makes sense to prohibit.
Thank you. Final question. Along the trail at West Avenue, Victoria, and right beside the trail at Queen Street, there are two of the biggest eyesores I see in the city. Can we not do anything about those? They are practically on top of the trail.
Just keep yourself in, Mr. Joseph.
Sure. Can you just clarify what areas you're talking about?
There's one area as you approach West Avenue on the right, if I'm heading up toward Waterloo, West Avenue and Victoria. The place is a dump, basically, full of garbage, full of abandoned vehicles. And there's another one right up against the trail at Queen Street if you're going the other way. Same kind of situation, abandoned cars, all kinds of metal garbage, and you got a beautiful trail that's messed up by these properties.
Yeah, we did get a lot of concerns from the public about aesthetics along the trail. That it's highly used, people use it all the time, but that it's kind of, it's reaching the end of its life cycle. People would like to see it beautified and enhanced. So that's why a number of these recommendations actually talk about landscaping, seating areas, public art, like turn it into sort of a destination that people will actually want to linger in and hang out in versus just kind of going straight through to get to their destination. I think it links a lot, with the neighborhood strategy, placemaking. There's tons of opportunities along the trail where you can do that, where you have the space to put in something creative. And I think doing that would go a long way in kind of improving those aesthetic concerns.
No, if I start letting everyone do it, we're going to be another half hour. So, okay. Councillor Yaneski.
Very interesting report in terms of nicely laid out and good job by staff on that. A few questions I have, starting with a follow-up to Councillor Gazzola on the dollars and cents of it. You're talking, one of the recommendations here is that this be referred to the budget for 2016-2025. I didn't quite, did you say like $4 million would be allocated for the next 10 years? Is that the objective, or is that, could you clarify that for me?
Through the chair, if you refer back to the executive summary, we're looking at the $2.5 million be referred to the capital budget process, the 10-year capital budget process. And that deals with the initial 3 phases of the strategy. What we haven't recommended in the 10-year forecast is the $1.5 million for lighting. We recognize that that's probably something that's beyond our capacity right now, and we've identified it that would probably be beyond the 10-year forecast.
So in the 10-year of this $4 million, you'll break it down into chunks as to so much per year that you would do for the 10-year period. Is that the intent?
Correct. If you refer to the executive summary, and I'll go back to page 8, I believe.
Yeah, I saw that.
You'll see that we've identified 3 priorities, priority A, B, and C, and we've identified the sections that we would look at first.
Yeah, starting with the central.
So the central section at $750,000 is the first piece we'd bring back through the capital budget process.
Okay, I appreciate that. Next question, dealing with the issue of garbage and debris, etc. You pointed out it's in a certain area. I was out in the Iron Horse Trail back a little while ago by Palmer and Kent Avenue, and there was a tent set up, and there was garbage and debris all over the place, and I thought, like, geez, what's going on? Is this cleaned up at all, or just left there, or does the city staff come in and do it once a week, or what happens?
So, Dan?
Through the chair. We do annual maintenance, I'll say debris cleanup, and we monitor it probably on a monthly basis. Otherwise, we're dealing with it on a complaint basis. As calls come in, we'll go out within a day, generally speaking, a day or two, and go on dealing with it. Some of it's dealt with through bylaw as well, some bylaw cleanups if it's properties adjacent. So we are dealing with those as well.
So just to follow up further on that answer, then if you do go clean it up, are you back there again 2 weeks later cleaning up just as much?
I don't have those kinds of anecdotal information. I think potentially we could be back to some of the same spots time and time again, yeah.
So enforcement is another issue that needs to be done. That's not, I mean, you can only be in certain places at all the time, so that becomes another issue as well.
Yeah, I think a big part of it has to do with just like when you have more people on the trail, more eyes on the trail, it really can increase safety. It can kind of reduce the amount of bad behaviors that are happening. So that's kind of an aspect of the trail. I think that rather than just treating it as a thoroughfare where people are just traveling through, if we can turn it into sort of a place-making recreational destination as well, then you'll see people hanging out in those spaces, and hopefully those people will act when they see something that shouldn't be done, right? So if there's a signage and wayfinding program that says, if you see these concerns, call this number, or, you know, something like that, I think would really go a long way in improving some of those issues.
Well, hopefully it would be done, because the portion of the trail I saw, the trail looks great, you know, it looks freshly done, etc. And then right beside it, it's all this garbage, there's a tent, and the guy that was there says, like, what are you doing here? What do you want? And I felt, you know, sort of like, oh, we're going to have a problem. So, and I was the only one there, and there's nobody along the trail, so it's sort of a, I don't know if it's a dead area or a quiet area compared to down by Queen Street, where it's much more busier. So, you know, I just saw it as a big issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah. We've identified a bunch of issues and concerns. So my one question is to address some of these concerns, and I don't know that I saw it, but I may have missed it in reading, that the partnerships with residents to help address the concerns. Is that something that we're going to be looking at as part of this whole Friends of the Iron Horse Trail?
Yeah, definitely. So that it wouldn't just involve Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee, it should involve neighborhood associations, members of the public, police, bylaw, and police have actually already confirmed with me that they're willing to join such a group. So they were really great to deal with in terms of the SEPTED audit, and I think they recognize the need for their involvement in the future. It's not one group that necessarily should be responsible for this. It truly should be a community kind of focused approach.
Great, okay. And then I think we've discussed this at Cycling, but I just want to make sure it's been asked, the opportunity for sponsorship along the trail. I know that you had some interesting pictures about benches and wayfinding and things like that. We're continuing to investigate that, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And the, I guess the bigger question is, what is the minimum budget implications for 2016? I mean, I know what the maximum, I know what, you know, the sky is the limit in that respect, but what is the minimum you would be asking for at 2016 budget, given the fact that you're talking about a 10-year capital forecast?
Through the chair. So at this point, what we're suggesting is that we divide it into 3 priorities, and you can see that throughout the report, priority A, B, and C.
Gotcha.
So our first step would be bringing priority A forward.
Okay, that's great. Thanks so much for all the work. It is indeed a really, really good and very readable report.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Many of my questions have been asked. I'm just going to ask, I guess, just a quick yes or no. I'm looking at pages 72 and 73 as well. I'm assuming that the reason the garbage cans are in here is because there aren't enough garbage bins presently? Is that?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. I do have some concern, and I guess a bit more clarification on the benches and picnic tables. You mentioned more eyes. I guess when I first read this, my concern was having perhaps loitering that we might not want to see on the trail. Was that explored? Is that part of the SEPTED principles?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, definitely. Actually, in the SEPTED audit, the police recommended that we close certain unwanted footpaths or trail corridors that we kind of see and just formalize the ones that we'd like people to be in. So the Henry Sturm Greenway is a really good example. That's at the Iron Horse just south of West Ave. It's a really great community space. You know, there's a formal trail that connects out to the West End Trail Network, but there's also a number of worn footpaths throughout that area that probably aren't formally intended to have people on. So it's just kind of just formalizing and kind of making it clear where we expect people to be. In terms of the seating, just one point of clarification as well. Not everyone who uses the trail is a commuter or a bike rider. You know, we had a lot of older adults as well, actually, who lived in the apartment buildings around Belmont Village that requested personally to me, like, we need more seating. You know, like we can't walk a kilometer without having somewhere to rest. So I think those seating areas are also intended for that demographic as well, people who might have accessibility concerns or just who may need a rest.
Okay, and that actually leads into my next question. That's great, and I agree 100%. My concern, though, is that on page 73, it's showing annual maintenance cost specifically for benches and picnic tables at $27,000 a year when this is built out. Is there not, I mean, personally, I don't find the comfort difference between sitting on wood and armor stone, for example. Is there not an opportunity to perhaps use more durable materials?
I think there is, and I think we also talked about in the seating section of the report the need to kind of think outside the box in terms of what that might look like. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bench. Maybe it is some flagstone seating or something that's more integrated into the natural landscape that might be vandalized less or have less graffiti. I think there's lots of precedent for different types of seating along trail corridors like this, and they're not all benches. So there's definitely creative ways, I think, to mitigate and lower some of those costs for sure.
Great. So without delaying this any further, then that will be taken as feedback?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor Vrbanovich?
Thank you. Just one quick question, and I mean, I too concurred. Great report, lots of great information in it. But on the budgetary issues, so you're asking that basically the $2.5 million without the lighting be referred to capital budget, and if I understood you correctly, the focus was on sort of the first sort of category A stuff is what you would be looking for in 2016. I just want to be clear in terms of understanding what out of this $2.5 million, if any of it, is in the budget right now, and what are we going to need to be finding? And I don't know if that's a question for you or Mr. Chapman.
So at this point, it's not in the budget process. We would be looking at priority A, which is the central section, to bring it forward in an issue paper in the capital budget process.
Okay, so it hasn't been thus far for 2016. So, I mean, I guess how far along is staff in the capital budget process in terms of having this ad for next year? Like, is it beyond that?
Mr. Chapman?
The entry point?
Through Mr. Chair, I want to clarify that we have included in the draft capital forecast funding for the central section. So it will still require an issue paper and council approval, but it has been built into a fully funded capital program. No provision could have been made at this point in time for anything beyond that, but that was identified as the top priority, and so that's been funded.
Okay. And if council were to do anything else, it would have to come at the expense of other things.
That's correct. So when you receive your forecast later in the week, you'll see that there are a few other high priority projects that have been funded, and ultimately you could decide on a different prioritization and shift funding from one to another.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have no further questions. I guess comments? What's it? It's been moved. Okay. Call the question's been there. Sorry, Councillor Schneider. All those in favor?
Wait, can we have a recorded vote on that?
Sure.
Please?
No. It's been called to question, so no comments. All those in favor, please stand up. Opposed? Okay, that's been carried. Councillor Galloway-Seelock?
Yeah, in light of the timing that we are running behind today, I spoke with Mr. Reedman, and it's fine by him that if we defer this last matter to the next cycle of meetings.
Okay, take a motion for that. All those in favor? What's that?
When? I said the next
cycle.
next committee meeting cycle.
No. Okay, that concludes the Community Infrastructure Service Committee. Thank you.